She laughed at me with someone, without knowing I could hear everything through the hidden phone. Michael Thompson had his head in his hands when he heard her laughter echoing through the smart speaker in the living room. It was a laugh he knew well, but one that hadn't been directed at him in months. His wife Jessica was in the next room, and from the audio coming through, she clearly wasn't alone in the conversation. The phone in his hands trembled along with his nervous fingers. 3 weeks ago, Michael had installed a monitoring app on his wife's phone, something he never imagined he'd do in 15 years of marriage, but his suspicions were stronger than his guilty conscience. You should have seen the look on his face when he got home yesterday. Jessica's voice came through the connection. Completely clueless, as usual. Sometimes I wonder how he's kept the business running all these years. The male voice that responded was familiar, but Michael couldn't place it right away. The sound was slightly distorted by the transmission. "And he doesn't suspect anything?" the man asked. "Michael?" Jessica laughed again. "He's so wrapped up in the company's problems he barely even looks at me. Just yesterday he didn't even notice I'd gone to the salon. 15 years married to a man who doesn't see me." Michael felt a lump in his throat. The salon. She had told him she'd stayed home taking care of his mother, Mrs. Dorothy, who had a bad flu. Another lie uncovered by that app, which made him feel like both a spy and a victim at the same time. The accounting consulting firm Michael had built from the ground up was indeed struggling. In the last 6 months, 3 major clients had ended their contracts, citing budget cuts. He spent nights hunched over spreadsheets, trying to find a way to keep all 8 employees without laying anyone off. "It's been easier than I thought," Jessica continued. "He doesn't even question it when I say I'm visiting my sister in Miami Beach. Yesterday, we spent 3 hours at that cafe near the mall, and when I got home, he didn't even ask how my day was." Michael's heart raced. Jessica didn't have a sister in Miami Beach. She only had one sister, Amanda, who lived right in New York City in Queens. Another lie to add to the dozens he'd uncovered in recent weeks. "What about the plan?" the male voice asked. "Everything's set," Jessica replied. "The lawyer said, with the evidence we have, it'll be straightforward. Michael won't even see it coming." The word lawyer made Michael's blood run cold. What evidence? What plan? He tried turning up the volume, but the audio was already at max. "I have to go," Jessica said. "He should be getting back from that meeting with the new clients. Poor fools, they have no idea what they're signing up for." The call ended and silence filled the room. Michael sat frozen, phone in hand, his mind struggling to process what he'd just heard. Poor fools? Why would Jessica talk like that? About the new clients he'd worked so hard to land. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of working tirelessly to give her the comfortable life they'd always dreamed of. The house in the upscale Upper East Side, the yearly beach vacations, the new car every 3 years. All of it, only to find out she thought he was a failure. Michael slipped the phone into his pocket and walked to the living room window. From the 12th floor, he had a privileged view of the city. New York stretched as far as the eye could see, but right now, all he could see was his life falling apart. The sound of a key in the lock snapped him out of his thoughts. Jessica was home. "Hi, honey," she said, stepping into the living room with a smile that now seemed fake in his eyes. "How was the meeting?" Michael observed her for a moment. Jessica was 35, with straight brown hair that reached her shoulders, wearing a navy blue dress he didn't remember seeing before. She had makeup on, something she rarely did when staying home. "It went well," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I closed deals with 2 new clients, and you? How was your day?" "At home, taking care of your mother," she answered without hesitation. "Her flu isn't getting better. I spent the whole afternoon making tea and soup." The lie came out so naturally that Michael felt a chill. If he hadn't overheard the conversation, he would have believed her completely. "That's good of you to take care of her," he said. "Tomorrow I'll stop by to see how she's doing." For a split second, he thought he saw a flicker of nervousness in her eyes, but it passed too quickly to be sure. "Don't worry about it," Jessica said. "I already promised to go back in the morning. You have so much work with these new clients. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, Don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now continuing. That night, Michael barely slept. Jessica lay beside him, breathing peacefully, while his mind raced with unanswered questions. Who was the man on the call? What plan were they scheming? What evidence did they have? By 5 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went to his home office. The computer screen blinded him momentarily in the dark, but he needed to work. There were reports to finish and proposals to send. That's when he noticed something odd in the company files. Several documents he'd created in recent weeks had modification dates he didn't recognize. Some had been altered during times. He wasn't in the office. Michael checked the system access logs. Someone had logged into his account last Saturday at 2:30 p.m. At that time, he'd been at the club playing tennis with his partners, as he'd done every Saturday for years. His heart pounded again. Jessica knew all his passwords. He'd never hidden anything from her, blindly trusting his partner of 15 years. But now, staring at those access records, he began to understand what she'd meant by evidence. He checked which documents had been accessed: contracts, financial spreadsheets, client correspondence. If someone wanted to harm his company, those files would be a goldmine of confidential information. Michael printed the access reports and hid them in a folder he locked in the office safe. He wasn't sure what to do with the information yet, but instinct told him he'd need it. At 7, Jessica walked into the office with a cup of coffee. "You're up early," she said, kissing his forehead. "Couldn't sleep." "Had a lot to do," he replied, closing the computer screen. "Thanks for the coffee." "I'm heading out now to check on your mother," she said. "Not sure when I'll be back." "That's fine," Michael said. "If she's better, maybe I'll stop by this evening." He saw that flash of nervousness in her eyes again. "Better let her rest today," Jessica said quickly. "Yesterday she was really weak. Maybe tomorrow." After she left, Michael called his mother. "Hello, son," Mrs. Dorothy answered, her voice clear and strong. "Mom, how are you feeling?" he asked. "Fine, thank God." "Why?" "Jessica said she was taking care of you yesterday, that you had the flu." There was a pause on the other end. "Son, I haven't seen Jessica in 2 weeks and I'm not sick. I'm great. Just got back from my walk in the park." Michael felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. 2 weeks. Every time Jessica said she was taking care of her mother-in-law, she was lying. "Mom, are you sure?" "Absolutely, son. Is everything okay? You seem worried." "No, Mom, everything's fine." I must have gotten confused. "That's good." "Oh, and Michael, that young man came by again yesterday." "What young man?" "Brandon, that friend of Jessica's. He said he was looking for you two but couldn't reach you by phone. He asked if I knew where she was." Brandon. Michael knew several Brandons, but now the name echoed in his mind with a different weight. Brandon Miller, the accountant who had worked at his company 2 years ago. Michael had fired him after discovering he was leaking client information to competitors. "Mom, what did this Brandon look like?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Tall, dark-haired, in his early 30s. Polite, but he had these strange eyes. "Why, son?" It was him. Brandon Miller was looking for Jessica. Now Michael began piecing together the puzzle. The resentful ex-employee and his wife plotting something against him. "It's nothing, Mom. If he comes back, don't tell him where we are, okay?" "Of course, son. But are you really okay?" "Yes, I'll call you later." Michael hung up the phone and stood motionless in his office for several minutes. Jessica and Brandon. That explained a lot. Brandon knew how the company worked, where the weak points were, and now he had access to the files through the passwords Jessica had. But what exactly were they planning? And why was Jessica involved? Were they just partners in some scheme, or was there more to it? The answer came sooner than he expected. Around 10 in the morning, Michael was preparing client presentations when his phone rang. It was a call from Jessica, but she wasn't speaking to him. Apparently, she had dialed by mistake. "I can't keep pretending much longer," he heard her say. 15 years is too long to live a lie." "I know," Brandon's voice replied, "but we need to make sure he can't recover financially. The longer he takes to find out about the clients, the better for us." "What do you mean about the clients?" Jessica asked. The three who cancelled their contracts in the last few months. They all received information that made them lose trust in Michael. Information that could only have come from inside the company. Michael felt his blood run cold. Brandon had sabotaged his clients. That explained why companies that had worked with him for years suddenly ended their contracts without a convincing explanation. "And the new clients he got?" Jessica asked. "It's all set. Next week they'll receive some anonymous calls with interesting information about his accounting. Things that will make them think twice about keeping the contract." "Brandon, are you sure this can't backfire?" There was concern in Jessica's voice. "Relax. When it's all over, he'll be so financially ruined, he won't even be able to hire a decent lawyer. And you'll be free to start over with me." Michael's world collapsed in that moment. It wasn't just marital betrayal. It was an elaborate conspiracy to destroy his business and his life. Brandon was using Jessica to sabotage everything he had built, and she was letting it happen. "What if he finds out too soon?" she asked. "He won't. Michael's smart with numbers, but he's too naive to see what's happening right under his nose. Besides, he trusts you. That's our biggest advantage." "Sometimes I feel bad," Jessica said softly. "He's not a bad person." "Jessica, you spent 15 years of your life with a man who doesn't appreciate you. How many times did you try to talk about your dreams, and he was too busy with work to listen? How many times did you feel invisible beside him?" There was a moment of silence. "You're right," she finally said. "It's time to think about me." The call ended, leaving Michael alone with the weight of betrayal. It wasn't just an affair, it was a systematic, premeditated destruction of everything he had built. He walked to the window again, but this time, the city view offered no comfort. Down below, people went about their lives, unaware that on the 12th floor, a man was realizing his entire life had been a lie. Michael thought about his employees. 8 families depended on the salaries he paid faithfully every month. If Brandon kept sabotaging clients, soon he wouldn't be able to keep the business running. Not only would his life be ruined, but so would the lives of innocent people who trusted him. Then he thought of his mother. Mrs. Dorothy was 72 and relied on the monthly financial help he sent. Without the company, he wouldn't be able to care for her anymore. And finally, he thought of himself. At 40, he'd have to start over from scratch, carrying the humiliation of being betrayed and sabotaged by his own wife. Anger surged like a hot wave, not just at the betrayal, but at the cold calculation behind it. Jessica and Brandon weren't just ending a marriage. They were deliberately and cruelly destroying lives. But along with the anger came something Michael hadn't felt in a long time: determination. He wouldn't be a passive victim. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But it would be fought with the weapons he knew best: information, strategy, and patience. Michael returned to his computer and began organizing all the evidence he'd gathered. System access logs recorded conversations, his mother's accounts of Brandon's visits. Everything was catalogued and saved in multiple copies. Then he did something he never imagined he'd do. He called a private investigator. 20 minutes later, he was sitting in Frank Johnson's office downtown. Frank, a former cop, now specialized in infidelity and corporate fraud cases. "I need you to investigate my wife and a former employee," Michael said. "Suspicion of an affair?" asked Frank, a 50-year-old man with graying hair and a serious expression. "That and more," Michael replied, handing him a folder of evidence. "I believe they're sabotaging my company." Frank examined the documents for a few minutes, jotting notes on a pad. "This is a complex case," he finally said. "I'll need at least 2 weeks to gather solid evidence. How much are you willing to invest in this?" Michael thought about the money still in the company account. 2 weeks of investigation would cost a considerable amount, but he needed to know exactly what he was up against. "Do whatever it takes," he said. Back home, Michael found Jessica in the kitchen making dinner. "How was your day?" she asked, as if nothing had happened. "Busy," he replied. "And yours?" "How's my mother?" "Getting better," she said without looking at him. "I spent the whole day there." "That's good," Michael said, watching her cook. "Maybe I should visit her tomorrow." "No need," she said quickly. She's still very weak. Better to wait a few more days. Jessica, can I ask you something? She stopped stirring the pot and looked at him. Of course. Are you happy with me? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She remained silent for a few seconds before answering. Why are you asking that? I just want to know, he said. 15 years is a long time. People change. I'm happy, she said, but her voice sounded unconvincing. Why wouldn't I be? I don't know, said Michael. Sometimes I get the feeling you're distant, like you have other worries. That's just your impression, she replied, stirring her food again. You're the one who's been stressed about work. Maybe you're right, he agreed. That night, as Jessica slept, beside him, Michael stayed awake, planning his next steps. 2 weeks until he had the detective's evidence. In the meantime, he needed to act as if he knew nothing, keeping Brandon and Jessica confident that their plan was working. But he also had to protect his company. The next morning, he would change all the system passwords and implement new security protocols. He couldn't stop Brandon from sabotaging his clients, but at least he could limit access to confidential information. Dawn came slowly, bringing with it the weight of a new reality. Michael was no longer a confident husband and successful businessman. He was a man fighting to save what remained of his life. At the office, he arrived before any of the employees and spent 2 hours adjusting security settings. When Karen, his secretary, arrived at 8 in the morning, she found him focused on spreadsheets. Good morning, Michael, she said. You're early today. Had a lot to do, he replied. Karen, I need you to change all the client file access protocols. Starting today, only you and I will have full access. Did something happen? She asked, concerned. Just a precaution, he said. We're growing, and we need to be more careful with information. Karen was 45 and had worked with Michael since the company's founding. She was someone he trusted completely, and for a moment he considered telling her about the situation, but he decided to wait until he had more evidence. Over the next few days, Michael kept up his normal routine, but watched every detail of Jessica's behavior. She still left every morning, claiming she was taking care of Mrs. Dorothy, and returned in the evening with elaborate stories about her day. On the phone, he faked a few calls to clients, making up conversations about new contracts and financial details. He wanted to see if those fabricated details would reach Brandon's ears. The answer came on Friday. One of his oldest clients, the construction supply company Oliver & Sons, called to cancel their contract. Michael, it's with regret that I inform you of our decision, said Harold Wilson, the owner. We received some concerning information about your company's financial situation. What kind of information? Michael asked, feigning surprise. I'd rather not go into details, Harold replied, but it was very specific about your other clients and cash flow issues. Exactly the false information Michael had discussed on the phone days earlier. Brandon was indeed intercepting his communications somehow. Harold, I can assure you that information is false, Michael said. Someone is trying to harm my business. I'm sorry, Michael. You've always been a good accountant, but we can't take the risk. Our decision is final. When he hung up, Michael felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. Anger at losing another client, but satisfaction that his trap had worked. Now he was certain his calls were being monitored. That same day, Frank, the detective, called with news. I have some preliminary information, he said. Want to meet up? An hour later, Michael was back in the detective's office, this time with photos and reports in hand. Your wife and Brandon Miller meet every day, said Frank, showing pictures of the two entering and leaving cafes and restaurants. It's not just an affair. They spend hours talking, reviewing documents, making calls. What kind of documents? From the distance, I couldn't photograph the details, Frank replied, but they looked like reports and contracts, work-related stuff. Did you find out anything else about Brandon? Yes, Frank said, checking his notes. After he was fired from your company, he started a small accounting consultancy, but the business never took off. He's in serious debt and financial trouble. So he has a motive to hurt me, Michael said. Absolutely. But there's more, Frank added, handing him another set of photos. Yesterday, I followed them to a law firm downtown. They were there for 2 hours. Michael examined the photos. Jessica and Brandon entering an upscale office building in the city center. Did you find out which lawyer they met with? Dr. Edward Mitchell, Frank said. Specializes in corporate and divorce law, not cheap. Corporate and divorce law. The combination made Michael's stomach churn. They weren't just planning the end of their marriage, they were targeting the company too. Frank, I need you to find out everything you can about what they discussed with that lawyer. It'll be tough, Frank admitted. Lawyers are protected by confidentiality, but I'll try other avenues. Do whatever it takes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now back to the story. Michael returned home that night, his mind racing with possibilities. Corporate law could mean anything. Maybe they were planning to sue the company, or maybe they were trying to claim a share of the business in the divorce. Jessica was in the living room watching TV when he arrived. How was your day? She asked. Complicated, he replied, sinking into the armchair. I lost another client today. He watched her reaction carefully. For a split second, he thought he saw satisfaction in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with concern. That's too bad, she said. What happened? I'm not sure, Michael said. He mentioned hearing about financial troubles at the company. False information, obviously. Probably the competition, Jessica said. There's always someone trying to bring down those who are doing well. The irony almost made him laugh bitterly. His own wife, talking about people trying to hurt those on top. Maybe, he said. Jessica, can I ask you something personal? Of course. If you could change one thing about our life, what would it be? She stayed silent for a few seconds, thinking. I don't know, she finally said. Why all these questions? Lately? I've been going through a rough patch, Michael admitted. Losing clients, company problems, makes a man rethink his priorities. You've always worried too much about work, she said. Maybe it's time to think about other things. Like what? I don't know. Travel, meet new people, try different things. New people? Michael asked. It's just a figure of speech, she said quickly. I mean, break the routine, do things we've always put off. And what would those things be? Jessica seemed uneasy with the conversation. Michael, why are you interrogating me? She said. It feels like you're suspicious of something. Sorry, he said. You're right, it's just work stress. Maybe you should talk to someone, she said. A psychologist or something. Maybe, he agreed. That night, Michael stayed up late researching Dr. Edward Mitchell online. The lawyer had an impressive resume, specializing in complex divorce cases involving family businesses. Several of his cases had resulted in asset divisions that left ex-husband entrepreneurs in very difficult financial situations. On Saturday morning, while Jessica slept, Michael decided to test something. He called Brandon, pretending to be a potential client. Hello, answered the familiar voice. Brandon Miller? Michael asked, disguising his voice. Yes. Speaking. My name is John Smith. I own an import business and I'm looking for an accountant. A friend recommended you. What kind of services do you need? Brandon asked, interested. Mostly tax bookkeeping, Michael said. My company is growing and I need someone experienced. I can definitely help, Brandon replied. How about we meet on Monday to discuss further? Perfect, Michael said. Do you have an office? I'm working from home for now, Brandon said. But I can come to your company, or we can meet somewhere neutral. How about the cafe on Fifth Avenue? Michael suggested. Do you know the Central Cafe? I do. What time? 10 in the morning? Perfect. How will I recognize you? I'll be wearing a blue shirt and carrying a black briefcase, Michael said. And you? I'm tall, dark-haired, and I'll be in a grey suit. Then it's settled. See you Monday. Michael hung up, satisfied. On Monday, instead of going himself, he'd send Frank to take photos of Brandon and confirm whether he was really the one sabotaging the company. The rest of the weekend passed slowly. Jessica left on Saturday afternoon, claiming she was meeting a friend, and didn't return until Sunday night. On Sunday morning, Michael went to visit his mother. Son, you look terrible, Mrs. Dorothy said as soon as she opened the door. Are you sick? No, Mom, just a little tired. Come in, I'll make some coffee. His mother's house always calmed him. It was small but cozy, filled with family photos and plants she tended with care. Mom, has that Brandon come by again? He asked, sitting in the kitchen. No, thank goodness, she said. That young man gave me the creeps. He had such cold eyes. If he shows up, don't answer the door, okay? Of course, son, but tell me what's going on. You're worrying me. Michael considered telling her everything, but decided to spare her. She was already getting older and didn't need to worry about his problems. Just work stuff, Mom, nothing serious. And Jessica, is she all right? She's fine. That's good, Mrs. Dorothy said. You two make such a lovely couple. I've always rooted for you. His mother's words hurt more than Michael expected. 15 years of history, thousands of shared moments, all reduced to an elaborate lie. Mom, can I ask you something? He said. How did you know Dad was the right man for you? Mrs. Dorothy smiled, remembering the husband she had lost 5 years ago. Your father never lied to me, she said. Not once in 42 years of marriage. Even when the truth hurt, he was always honest. And if you found out he had lied about something important, it depends on the lie, she said thoughtfully. If it was to protect me, I'd understand. But if it was to hurt me, that would be different. Different how? Trust is the foundation of everything, son. Without trust, there's no marriage. Just two people sharing the same house. Mrs. Dorothy's words echoed in Michael's mind the whole way home. Two people sharing the same house. That was exactly what he and Jessica had become, without him even realizing it. On Monday, Michael was in his office when Frank called. The operation worked perfectly, the detective said. I have clear photos of Brandon waiting at the cafe. It's definitely the same person from the other photos. And did he wait long? Almost an hour, Frank replied. Then he called someone, seemed frustrated, and left. Great, that confirms he's really trying to find new clients to sabotage. And I have more news, Frank added. I managed to uncover some details about the meeting with the lawyer. Michael sat back in his chair, bracing for bad news. Go on. Apparently they're preparing a lawsuit against you, Frank said. I couldn't get specific details, but it involves allegations of financial mismanagement and embezzlement. Embezzlement? Michael nearly shouted. What are they accusing me of? Like I said, I don't have the specifics, Frank replied. But from what I gathered, they're collecting evidence to prove you diverted company funds for personal expenses. That's absurd, Michael said. All the company's accounting is transparent. I know, Frank agreed. But remember, they've had access to your files for months. If they want, they can easily alter documents to create false evidence. The reality hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Brandon and Jessica weren't just planning an ordinary divorce. They were setting a trap that could lead to criminal charges against him. Frank, I need every piece of evidence you can get, Michael said, and I need it fast. I'll speed up the investigation, Frank replied. But it'll cost more. Cost doesn't matter. Michael hung up and sat in his office for several minutes, trying to process the magnitude of the conspiracy against him. This wasn't just about losing his wife and part of his assets. He could end up in jail for crimes he didn't commit. That afternoon, he decided to do something he'd never considered before: hire a criminal defense attorney. Dr. Richard Anderson had an office on Wall Street and a solid reputation for defending businessmen accused of financial crimes. Mr. Thompson, Dr. Richard said after hearing the whole story, you're in a very delicate situation. What exactly can they do to me? With access to the company files, they can easily create evidence of misappropriated funds, the lawyer explained. Suspicious transfers, unjustified payments, fake contracts, the possibilities are endless. But I have recordings of their conversations, Michael said. Recordings obtained without consent may not be admissible in court, Dr. Richard cautioned. Depending on how they were made, they could even be considered illegal. So I'm trapped. Not necessarily, the lawyer said, but we need to act. First, I recommend hiring a computer forensics expert to analyze all the company files. Any malicious changes can be detected if we act before they have time to cover their tracks. What about the clients who were sabotaged? That might actually work in our favor, Dr. Richard said. If we can prove there was a systematic conspiracy, To harm your business, it could invalidate any mismanagement claims. Michael left the lawyer's office with a small glimmer of hope, but also the awareness that he was in a race against time. With each passing day, Brandon and Jessica were preparing to destroy him. That night at home, he watched Jessica eat dinner as usual, chatting about trivial things from her day. It was surreal to think the woman sitting across from him was coldly plotting to ruin his life. "Michael, you've been very quiet lately," she said. "Is something worrying you?" "Just company matters," he replied. "Nothing you need to worry about." "Maybe you should take a vacation," she suggested. "When was the last time we traveled together?" The suggestion sounded ironic coming from someone who was planning to sue him. "I can't travel right now," said Michael. "I have too many responsibilities." "You've always had too many responsibilities," Jessica said with a slightly irritated tone. "Sometimes I wonder if you remember you have a life outside of work." "Of course I remember," he said. "But without work, we have no life." "There's life beyond money, Michael." "Easy to say when you have money," he replied, watching her reaction. Jessica fell silent for a moment, clearly bothered by the comment. "Are you implying I'm a gold digger?" "I'm not implying anything," Michael said. "I'm just saying it's easy to dismiss work when you enjoy its benefits." "I've never dismissed your work," she said defensively. "Haven't you?" Michael asked. "Then why do you change the subject every time I talk about the company?" "Because that's all you talk about," Jessica said, raising her voice. 15 years of listening about spreadsheets, clients, taxes. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe I want to talk about other things?" "What other things?" Michael asked. "Our dreams, our plans, our feelings," she said. "Things normal, people talk about. And since when do you care about my feelings?" The question caught Jessica off guard. She stared at him for a few seconds before answering. "I've always cared." "No, Jessica," Michael said calmly. "You cared about what my feelings could provide for you. Comfort, security, status. But the feelings themselves, never." "You're being unfair," she said. "Unfair?" Michael nearly laughed. "When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? When was the last time you showed genuine interest in any of my concerns?" Jessica didn't answer. "Do you know when it was?" Michael continued. 3 years ago, when I was considering expanding the company, and you were interested because it meant more money." "That's not true, isn't it?" Michael said. "Then tell me one time, just one, when you showed interest in my feelings without there being a financial advantage involved." Jessica stayed silent, clearly searching for an answer she couldn't find. "That's what I thought," Michael said, standing up from the table. "Good night, Jessica." He went upstairs to the bedroom and lay down, but couldn't sleep. The conversation had been revealing in a way he hadn't expected. For the first time in months, Jessica had shown genuine emotion, anger. And that anger confirmed what he already suspected. Their marriage had long become a business transaction. The next morning, Michael arrived early at the office and found an email from Frank waiting for him. The detective had uncovered more information about Jessica and Brandon's meetings. "Michael, important update. I've discovered they meet every Tuesday and Thursday at the cafe on Rodeo Drive. Tomorrow is Tuesday. I suggest you go in person to hear their conversation. I need you to confirm some things I've found." Michael's stomach twisted. The idea of spying on his wife was repulsive, but he needed to know exactly what he was dealing with. On Tuesday, at 9 in the morning, Michael sat at a discreet table in the cafe on Rodeo Drive, hidden behind a newspaper. At 9:30, he saw Jessica walk in. She was more dressed up than usual, wearing a dress he didn't remember seeing before and more elaborate makeup. She looked like a woman going on a romantic date, not a business meeting. 10 minutes later, Brandon arrived. He was exactly as Michael remembered, tall, dark-haired, with a confident demeanor. He kissed Jessica on the cheek and sat across from her at a table near the window. Michael could catch fragments of their conversation, but not everything. He decided to take a risk and moved to a closer table, pretending to work on his laptop. "The lawyer said we need more time," Brandon's voice carried over. "The evidence we have is good, but it's not enough to guarantee the outcome we want." "How much longer?" Jessica asked. "It's been harder than I thought, pretending everything's normal." "A few more weeks," Brandon said. I need access to the company's older files, the ones from 5 years ago. And how are you going to do that, she asked. Michael changed all the passwords. You'll have to get the new ones, Brandon said. The way you always have. He's suspicious, Jessica said. Just yesterday he asked some strange questions. What kind of questions? About happiness, about our marriage. And there was this weird discussion about feelings. Brandon laughed. Feelings? Michael talking about feelings? That's new. It wasn't exactly like that, Jessica said. It was more like he was testing me. Testing how? Asking when was the last time I cared about his feelings. It felt like he was looking for a specific answer. Michael felt his blood run cold. She had figured out exactly what he was doing. Do you think he suspects something? Brandon asked. I don't know, Jessica said, but he's definitely been acting strange. More observant, asking questions he never asked before. If he suspects, it could complicate everything, Brandon said. We need to speed things up. How? I need you to get access to his safe, Brandon said. The lawyer said if we can get the original company formation documents, we can prove he used third-party money to capitalize the business. What third-party money? The loan his father made 15 years ago, Brandon explained. If we can prove Michael never paid it back but recorded it as his own capital, we have a solid fraud case. Michael nearly dropped his coffee. His father's loan had been repaid 10 years ago, but if Brandon could alter the documents, he could. Make it look like the money was never returned. Brandon, I'm not comfortable with this, Jessica said. Ending the marriage is one thing, but destroying his life completely is another. Jessica, we've talked about this, Brandon said impatiently. Do you want to be free of him or not? I do, but nothing, Brandon interrupted. You spent 15 years of your life with a man who doesn't appreciate you. Now you have the chance to start over with me and walk away with enough to live well. This isn't the time for doubts. What if they find out the documents were altered? They won't, Brandon said confidently. I have contacts who know how to handle these things without leaving a trace. Contacts? Jessica asked. It's better you don't know the details, Brandon said. Just trust me. The conversation was interrupted when Jessica's phone rang. It's him, she said, looking at the screen. He's probably asking where I am. Answer it, Brandon said. And remember the story we agreed on. Jessica picked up the phone. Hi, honey, she said, her voice completely different from the one she'd used seconds ago. I'm at the doctor's routine checkup. Michael hadn't called her. The phone that rang wasn't his. Someone else was trying to reach Jessica, and she automatically lied, assuming it was him. No, it won't take long, she continued. I'm almost done. I'll see you at home by late afternoon. She hung up and looked at Brandon. It wasn't him, Brandon said. I know, Jessica replied. It was my sister, but lying has become a reflex when the phone rings. It's normal, Brandon reassured her. Soon you won't have to lie anymore. When will this be over? Next week if we get the documents from the safe, Brandon said. The lawyer is already preparing the paperwork. As soon as we have the evidence, we'll file the claim. And then? Then you file for divorce, citing fraud, Brandon explained. With the evidence we'll have, he won't be able to contest it. He'll lose the company and might even face criminal charges. And us? Brandon took her hand across the table. We'll start our life together, he said, like it should have happened 2 years ago. 2 years. They had been together for 2 years. Michael felt a wave of nausea. 2 years of lies, 2 years of deceit, 2 years spent plotting his downfall. I need to go, Jessica said. If I take too long, he might get suspicious. Don't forget what we discussed about the safe, Brandon reminded her. I won't. They stood up, Brandon paid the bill, and they left together. Outside, Michael watched through the window as they kissed before parting. It wasn't a friendly or casual kiss. It was the kiss of a couple in love. Michael remained seated at the cafe for another 20 minutes, trying to process everything he'd heard. The magnitude of the betrayal was greater than he'd imagined. This wasn't just an affair that had escalated into a divorce plan. It was a 2-year conspiracy to destroy his life completely. The loan from his father. He remembered the repayment document kept in the office safe. It was one of the few pieces of evidence proving he'd paid the money back. If Brandon got his hands on that document, he could destroy it and spin an entirely false narrative. Michael paid his bill and left the cafe, his mind racing. He needed to protect the documents in the safe, but he also needed a plan to expose Brandon and Jessica before they could deliver the final blow. Back at the office, he immediately called Dr. Richard Anderson. "Doctor, the situation has gotten more complicated," Michael said, recounting everything he'd heard. "Mr. Thompson, this is very serious," the lawyer replied. "If they gain access to the original documents and alter them, it'll be very hard to prove your innocence later. What should I do?" "First, remove all important documents from the company safe," Dr. Richard advised. "Store them somewhere secure, preferably in a bank vault. Second, we'll need more evidence of their conspiracy." "What kind of evidence?" "The recordings you have are a good start, but we need something more concrete," the lawyer explained. "Emails, text messages, documents proving file tampering. How do I get that?" "I'll recommend a digital security expert," Dr. Richard said. "He can help monitor their communications legally." "How much time do we have?" "From what you heard, a week at most," the lawyer replied. "We need to act fast." Michael hung up and immediately went to the company safe. He removed all the important documents, certificates, contracts, payment receipts, and especially the loan repayment document from his father. Everything went into a folder he took straight to a bank vault. Back at the office, he found a message from Karen on his desk. "Michael, a man called asking for you. Said he was a potential client but wouldn't leave a name or number. He seemed to know details about the company." That seemed odd. Michael's blood ran cold. Brandon was probing the company, probably trying to find out if Michael had changed. The security protocols. He called Karen into his office. "Tell me exactly what this man asked," he said. "He wanted to know about our services," Karen replied, "but the questions were very specific. He asked about system access, how we store client files, our operating hours." "Did he ask about me specifically?" "Yes," Karen said. "He wanted to know if you were in the office, if you usually worked late, if you came in on weekends." "Karen, from now on don't give out any information about me to anyone," Michael said. "If someone asks anything about my routine or the company, say you can't disclose it." "Did something serious happen?" she asked, concerned. Michael hesitated, wondering if he should tell Karen the truth. She was trustworthy and could help protect the company. "Someone is trying to harm the business," he finally admitted. "I can't go into details now, but I need you to stay alert for anything unusual." "You can count on me," Karen said. "This company is my life too." That afternoon, Michael got a call from the digital security expert recommended by Dr. Richard Anderson. They scheduled a meeting for the next day. That night at home, Michael watched Jessica with new eyes. Every gesture, every word, every facial expression took on a different meaning now that he knew the truth. "How was the doctor today?" he asked during dinner. "Fine," she answered without hesitation. "Just routine tests. Everything's normal." "That's good," Michael said. "What did you do after?" "I stopped by the supermarket, then went to the mall to pick up a few things," she said. "Just a normal day." More lies. She didn't even blink when lying, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Jessica, can I ask you an honest question?" "Of course." "Do you love me?" The question caught her completely off guard. She stayed silent for a few seconds, clearly searching for the right words. "Why are you asking that?" "I just want to know," Michael said. "It's a simple question. Do you love me?" "Of course I do," she said, but her voice sounded unconvincing. "How do you know?" "What do you mean, how do I know?" "How do you know you love me?" Michael pressed. "What do you feel when you look at me? What goes through your mind when we're together?" Jessica seemed increasingly uncomfortable with the questions. "Michael, why are you doing this?" she asked. "It feels like an interrogation." "It's not an interrogation," he said calmly. "These are questions a husband asks his wife after 15 years of marriage. You've never asked these things before." "Maybe I should have," Michael said. "Maybe a lot would be different if we had honest conversations more often." "Honest conversations," Jessica repeated. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean conversations," Where we say what we really think and feel, Michael explained. No lies, no pretending, no hidden motives. I've always been honest with you. The statement almost made Michael laugh, but he held it in. Always? He asked. Are you sure? Yes, I am, Jessica said, but there was tension in her voice. Then tell me one thing you've never told me, Michael challenged. What do you mean? Everyone has secrets, thoughts they've never shared, he said. Tell me one of yours, something you've never told me. Jessica stayed silent for a long time. I don't have any secrets, she finally said. Everyone has secrets, Jessica. I don't. Fine, Michael said, standing up from the table. Then we have nothing left to talk about. He walked upstairs to the bedroom, leaving Jessica alone in the kitchen. For the first time in 2 years, she seemed genuinely upset. Perhaps because, for the first time, Michael was asking the right questions. Hours later, when she went up to the bedroom, Michael pretended to be asleep. But through half-closed eyelids, he saw her standing motionless by the bed for several minutes, just staring at him. For a moment, Michael wondered if there was any regret in that gaze. But then he remembered the conversation at the cafe, the passionate kiss with Brandon, the 2 years of lies. If there was regret, it was regret for being caught, not for betraying him. The next morning, Michael woke up early and found Jessica already dressed to leave. Where are you going so early? He asked. The doctor again, she said. I need to pick up some test results. Which doctor? Gynecologist, she replied, quickly. Women's stuff. Can I come with you? No need, she said, clearly nervous. It's just picking up some papers. All right, Michael said. See you tonight. After she left, Michael called Frank. I need you to follow my wife today, he said, and I want every photo you can get. No problem, Frank replied. Anything else? Yes. I need you to find out everything about the contacts Brandon mentioned. People who know how to alter documents. That might be trickier, Frank said. Those kinds of people don't leave easy trails. Do what you can. Michael arrived at the office and spent the morning trying to focus on work, but it was impossible. With every passing hour, he felt closer to the total collapse of his life. In the afternoon, he had a meeting with the digital security specialist, a young man named Stephen Reynolds. Mr. Thompson, from what I understand, we need to monitor the communications of 2 specific people, Stephen said. That's right, my wife and a former employee. It can be done, but you need to understand the legal limitations, Stephen explained. I can't hack personal accounts or intercept private communications, but I can monitor access to your company's systems and detect any malicious file changes. What about communications between them? If they use your company's network or access company systems, I can monitor it, Stephen said. Otherwise, only if we get physical access to their devices. Physical access? If you can get one of their phones or computers for a few minutes, I can install monitoring software, Stephen explained. But this has serious legal implications. Michael thought about Jessica's phone. Every night she left it charging in the kitchen. How much time would you need? 5 minutes at most, Stephen said, but I must insist, this could be considered an invasion of privacy. What if I find evidence of a crime through this monitoring? Depends on the judge, Stephen said. Some evidence might be accepted if it proves criminal activity. Other evidence could be thrown out for being illegally obtained. I'll think about it, Michael said. That night at dinner, Jessica was quieter than usual. How were the test results? Michael asked. Normal, she said. Everything's fine. That's good. After dinner, while Jessica was in the shower, Michael went down to the kitchen and took her phone. Hands trembling, he texted Stephen, I have the device, where do we meet? The reply came seconds later. Broadway gas station, 10 minutes. Michael grabbed his car keys and went upstairs to the bathroom. Jessica, I'm going to get cigarettes at the store, he called through the door. Okay, she replied. At the gas station, Stephen was waiting with a laptop. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked. I'm sure, Michael said, handing over the phone. Stephen connected the device to the laptop and began typing codes. 5 minutes later, he returned. The phone. Done, he said. From now on, I'll have access to all messages, calls, and emails. The data will be sent to a secure server. And she won't notice? The software is invisible, Harold said. But remember, if they find out, you could face serious legal trouble. Michael went back home with the phone and placed it exactly where Jessica had left it. When she came out of the bathroom, he was watching TV in the living room as if nothing had happened. "That was quick," she remarked. "The bakery is close by," he said. The next morning, Harold called early. "I have the first batch of information," he said. "Can you come to my office?" An hour later, Michael was staring at a screen filled with messages and call logs. "Your wife had intense communication with Brandon last night," Harold said. "Let me read some messages to you." Michael braced himself for the worst. "Michael is asking strange questions. I think he suspects something," Harold read aloud. "What kind of questions?" he continued, reading Brandon's reply. "About love, feelings, honesty. I've never seen him like this," was Jessica's response. "Do you think he found out something?" "I don't know, but yesterday he asked if I had any secrets. He was very direct. We need to speed up the timeline." "Did you get access to the safe?" "Not yet. He changed the combination." "Then we'll have to use Plan B." "What's Plan B?" "I'll explain when we meet today. Rodeo Drive Cafe, 10 a.m. Harold stopped reading and looked at Michael. "There's more, but I think you understand the gravity of the situation." "What is this Plan B?" Michael asked. "I don't know," Harold said. "But judging by the urgency in these messages, they're desperate. That makes them more dangerous, but also more likely to slip up." "Keep monitoring them," Michael said. "I need to know everything they're planning." "Of course. And Michael?" "Yes?" "Be very careful. Desperate people can do unpredictable things." Michael left Harold's office with a knot in his stomach. Plan B sounded threatening. What was Brandon plotting? The answer came a few hours later when Frank called with alarming news. "Michael, you need to hear this right away," the detective said. "Brandon hired a professional forger." "How did you find out?" "I tailed him yesterday afternoon," Frank explained. "He went to an underground print shop on the east side, a place known for producing fake documents." "What kind of documents?" "I couldn't find out specifically," Frank said. "But the shop owner has a history of forging certificates, contracts, and business documents." Michael felt the ground drop beneath him. Brandon wasn't just altering existing documents, he was creating entirely fake ones. "Frank, I need proof of this," Michael said. "Photos, recordings, anything that ties Brandon to that place." "I already have pictures of him entering and leaving," Frank said. "And I got the forger's name, Roger Sanders. He has a long criminal record." "Is that enough to sue Brandon?" "Depends," Frank said. "We need to prove he actually ordered fake documents related to you. Just visiting the place isn't enough." "So what do we do?" "I'll keep digging," Frank said. "And you need to secure all the original documents you still have." "Already done," Michael said. "They're all in a bank vault." "Good, but Michael, there's one more thing." "What?" "I found out Jessica opened a bank account at another bank 3 months ago," Frank said. "A personal account without your knowledge." "How did you find that out?" "Contacts," Frank said vaguely. "The point is, she's moving money without you knowing." "How much money?" "Monthly deposits of $5,000, said Charles. "Where is she getting that money from?" Michael thought quickly. Jessica didn't work and had no income of her own. The only money she handled was for household expenses, paid with the credit card from their joint account. "She must be withdrawing money from our account and depositing it into her personal account," said Michael. $5,000 a month for 3 months, calculated Charles. "That's $15,000 she's hidden from you." "Money to start a new life with Brandon," said Michael bitterly. "Probably," agreed Charles. Michael hung up the phone and sat in his office for several minutes. With each discovery, the betrayal grew deeper and more calculated. Jessica wasn't just planning to leave him. She was systematically stealing money to fund her new life. But $15,000 wasn't enough to justify the elaborate plan. There was more. Something he hadn't uncovered yet. The answer came late that afternoon when Harold called with a shocking discovery. "Michael, you need to sit down for this," said the security expert. "What did you find?" "Your wife and Brandon aren't just planning to destroy your company," said Harold. "They're planning to take it over." "How?" "I gained access to her emails," explained Harold. There's extensive correspondence with a lawyer specializing in corporate acquisitions. They're planning a legal maneuver to seize control of your company." "That's impossible," said Michael. "Jessica has no stake in the company." "Not officially," corrected Harold. "But legally, as your wife, she has rights to assets acquired during the marriage. And if they can prove you committed fraud, a judge could transfer company management to a third party while the case proceeds. And that third party would be Brandon Miller," said Harold. "As a former employee and accountant, he'd be considered qualified to manage the company temporarily." The magnitude of the plan finally dawned on Michael. They didn't just want to ruin his life. They wanted to steal everything he'd built. "Harold, I need all this evidence documented," said Michael. "Emails, messages, everything." "I'm already preparing a full report," said Harold. "But Michael, you need to act fast. According to the emails, they plan to file the motion on Monday. Monday, it was Thursday. He had only 4 days to prepare." "One last thing," said Harold. "Your wife is planning to leave this weekend. Apparently, she'll claim she discovered your fraudulent activities and can't live with you anymore." "How will she discover these fraudulent activities?" "Brandon is going to plant evidence in your home," said Harold. "Fake documents to make it look like you were embezzling company funds." Michael felt a wave of anger like never before. The cold, calculated way his life was being destroyed was almost unbelievable. "Harold, I need you to keep monitoring everything," said Michael. "And I need to know exactly when Brandon is coming to my house." "I can do that," said Harold. "But what are you planning?" "To give them exactly what they deserve," said Michael. That night, Michael came home with a plan fully formed in his mind. Jessica was in the living room watching TV, acting as if it were just another normal evening. "How was your day?" she asked, as he sat beside her on the couch. "Interesting," replied Michael. "Very interesting. Any news at the company?" "A few," he said, watching her carefully. "Nothing for you to worry about." "That's good," she said, turning her attention back to the TV. Michael studied her for several minutes. It was impressive how she managed to keep up the charade. If he didn't know the truth, he'd never suspect the woman beside him was planning to destroy his life. "Jessica, can I ask you one more personal question?" She sighed, clearly annoyed. "You're not going to stop with these questions, are you?" "This is the last one," Michael promised. "If you could go back in time and change one thing about our life, what would it be?" Jessica thought for a moment. "I'd change how much you work," she said. "I wish you were more present, more attentive to our relationship." "And if I changed?" "That now?" Michael asked. "If I sold the company and we moved somewhere peaceful, just the two of us?" The question clearly caught her off guard. She took a few seconds to respond. "It's a little late for that, don't you think?" she finally said. "Why would it be late?" 15 years, Michael," she replied. 15 years of asking you to pay more attention to our relationship. Now when things are difficult, you come up with this proposal. What if I was serious?" "But you're not," Jessica said. "You'd never sell the company. It's all you have." "What if I did?" Michael insisted. "What if I proved you're more important than any business?" Jessica looked him in the eyes for a long moment. "It would be too late," she finally said. "Some things, once broken, can't be fixed." "Even if someone tried really hard to fix them?" "Even then," Jessica replied. "Some things can't be recovered." The conversation ended there, but Michael had gotten the confirmation he needed. Jessica wasn't just unhappy with their marriage, she had completely given up on it. That made everything she was doing easier to justify in his conscience. The next day, Friday, Michael put his plan into action. He arrived early at the office and gathered Karen and the other employees. "Everyone, I need to share an important decision," he said. "Starting Monday, we're implementing a new security system in the company." "What kind of system?" Karen asked. "Security cameras in every area," Michael replied, "and a new access control system that logs everything happening on the computers." "Did something happen?" asked Jack, one of the senior accountants. "I've discovered someone is trying to sabotage our company," Michael said. "I can't give details yet, but we need to protect ourselves." "Someone inside the company?" Karen asked worriedly. "No," Michael replied. "Someone from the outside." but they have help from within. The employees exchanged uneasy glances. Don't worry, Michael assured them. None of you are under suspicion. I know exactly who's responsible. What about the police? Jack asked. Aren't you going to report it? I will, Michael said. But first I need to gather all the necessary evidence. Throughout the day, technicians installed discreet security cameras all over the office. By the time they finished, it was impossible to enter or leave any room without being recorded. That afternoon, Michael got a call from Harold. The messages keep coming, the specialist said. Brandon is going to your house tomorrow afternoon, while you're at the club. How does he know I'll be at the club? Jessica passed the information to him, Harold said. She told him you always go to the club on Saturdays and stay until 6 in the evening. Perfect, Michael said. And you're sure they plan to plant evidence? Absolutely, Harold replied. Brandon is bringing fake documents to hide in your home office. Later, Jessica will discover them and claim she can't stay married to a criminal. And on Monday, she'll file for divorce and press criminal charges at the same time, Harold said. Brandon will take over the company as temporary administrator. Not if they get arrested first, said Michael. On Saturday morning, Michael acted exactly as he did every weekend. He had coffee with Jessica, read the newspaper, and at 2 in the afternoon announced he was going to the club. What time will you be back? Asked Jessica. Around 6 as usual, said Michael. All right, she said. I'll take the chance to tidy up the house. Great, said Michael, kissing her forehead. See you later. But instead of going to the club, Michael parked the car 2 blocks away and walked back home. He entered through the back door, which led directly to the office, and hid behind a tall bookshelf where he could observe the entire room. At 3:15, he heard the doorbell ring, voices in the living room, then footsteps approaching the office. Brandon entered the room carrying a leather briefcase. He was alone. Apparently, Jessica had stayed in the living room to keep watch. Michael watched as Brandon opened the briefcase and pulled out several documents. Even from a distance, he could see they looked like contracts and receipts. Brandon began hiding them in drawers, between books, and even inside a picture frame. When Brandon finished planting the evidence, he left the office and Michael heard hushed voices in the living room. A few minutes later, the front door closed. Michael waited another 10 minutes before leaving his hiding spot. He went to the living room and found Jessica rearranging cushions on the sofa, trying to look busy. You're back early, she said, clearly nervous. The game was cancelled, said Michael. Rain. Oh, she said. That's too bad. Yeah, Michael agreed. But it's fine. I can use the time to get some work done in the office. Work? Jessica said quickly. On a Saturday? I have some proposals to review, said Michael, walking toward the office. Michael, she called, making him stop. How about we watch a movie together? It's been a while since we've done that. Later, said Michael. First, I want to finish some paperwork. He entered the office and pretended to work on the computer. But in reality, he was photographing all the evidence Brandon had planted. Each document was photographed in detail, including the places where they had been hidden. An hour later, Michael left the office. Done, he said to Jessica. Now we can watch the movie. But Jessica was restless. Clearly, she had expected him to find the documents and make a scene. You didn't notice anything strange in the office? She asked, trying to sound casual. What do you mean? I don't know, she said. Papers out of place? Something different? No, said Michael. Why do you ask? Just curious, she said. Sometimes when I leave, I worry about security. Don't worry, said Michael. The house is safe. That night, while Jessica slept, Michael called Dr. Richard Anderson. Doctor, I have all the evidence we need, he said quietly. What evidence? I caught Brandon planting fake documents in my house, said Michael. I have photos of everything. Excellent, said the lawyer. This completely changes the situation. Now we have concrete evidence of conspiracy and forgery. What do we do? Monday morning, before they can file anything, we'll go to the precinct with all the evidence, said Dr. Richard. I'll prepare a formal complaint over the weekend. And Jessica? If she was aware of the forgery, she's an accomplice, said the lawyer. She could be arrested along with Brandon. Michael hung up with mixed feelings. On one hand, he felt satisfaction at finally having the tools to defend himself. On the other, he felt deep sadness realizing that come Monday morning, his wife of 15 years would be arrested. But the sadness was soon replaced by the memory of everything she had done. 2 years of lies, betrayal, systematic sabotage of his company, money theft, and now an attempt to frame him with false evidence. Jessica had chosen her path. Sunday passed slowly. Jessica was more nervous than usual, clearly anxious for Monday to arrive. Several times Michael caught her glancing at the office, as if hoping he would finally discover the planted documents. That night, she made one final attempt. "Michael, I need to tell you something," she said during dinner. "What is it?" "Yesterday, when you went to the club, I thought I heard strange noises in the house." "What kind of noises?" "Like someone was going through your office," she said. "I was too scared to check." "And you didn't check?" "No," she replied. "I thought it might just be my imagination." "Let's check now," Michael said, rising from the table. "Now?" Jessica said nervously. "But if someone did go through anything, they're long gone by now." "Even so," Michael replied, "I want to make sure everything's in place." They went to the office together. Michael turned on the lights and began checking things, pretending to look for anything out of place. "Everything seems normal," he said after a few minutes. "Are you sure?" Jessica pressed. "Nothing's missing. Nothing looks different." "Not that I've noticed," Michael said. "Why are you so worried?" "Well, if someone did break in," she started. "No one broke in, Jessica," Michael interrupted. "It was just normal noises." He saw the frustration in her eyes. She clearly expected him to find the documents and panic. "Maybe you should look more carefully," she suggested. "Check the drawers, go through the papers." "Why?" Michael asked. "If someone had tampered with anything, it would be obvious." "Maybe not," Jessica said. "Maybe they were careful." Michael studied her for a moment. "Jessica, are you hiding something from me?" "What do you mean?" "You're pushing really hard for me to search the office." He said, "It's like you know there's something to be found." "Don't be paranoid," she replied. "I'm just concerned about security." "All right," Michael said, "but there's nothing out of place here." They returned to the living room, but Michael could feel Jessica's tension. She was clearly frustrated he hadn't found the planted evidence. On Monday morning, Michael woke up early and pretended to prepare for another normal work day. "I have an important meeting." "Today?" he told Jessica over breakfast. "With who?" "New clients," Michael lied. "It could save the company." "That's great," Jessica said, but he could tell she was barely listening. Clearly her mind was elsewhere. "Jessica, are you staying home today?" "Yes," she said. "I have a few things to take care of." "What kind of things?" "Personal matters," she replied vaguely. Michael finished his coffee and stood up. "See you tonight," he said, kissing her forehead. "Maybe," Jessica replied. The answer confirmed what Michael already knew. She was planning to leave the house during the day, probably to file for divorce and the criminal complaint, but she didn't know Michael was heading straight to the police station. At 9 a.m., Michael was seated at the 14th precinct with Dr. Richard Anderson. Spread across the table were hundreds of pages of evidence, photos, recordings, reports, bank statements, system access logs. "Detective, we have a clear case of conspiracy, document forgery, corporate sabotage, and attempted fraud," Dr. Richard said. Detective Robert Collins examined the evidence for nearly an hour before speaking. "This is an impressive case," he finally said. "The amount of evidence is extraordinary. I'll issue the arrest warrants immediately." "For both of them?" Michael asked. "For both," confirmed the detective. "Your wife's involvement is clear in all the intercepted communications." An hour later, 2 patrol cars left the precinct. One headed to Michael's house, the other to Brandon's apartment. Michael went with the team to his home. When they arrived, Jessica was stepping out with 2 suitcases. "Jessica Thompson?" the officer asked. "Yes," she replied, clearly surprised. "You're under arrest for document forgery, conspiracy, and attempted fraud." Jessica's face instantly paled. She looked at Michael, who was stepping out of the police car. Michael, she said, confused. What's going on? You know exactly what's going on, Michael said calmly. I don't understand, Jessica said, but her voice trembled. 2 years, Jessica, Michael said. 2 years of lies, betrayal, and sabotage. Did you really think I'd never find out? The police handcuffed Jessica and placed her in the patrol car. Before the door closed, she looked at Michael one last time. Michael, we can talk about this, she said desperately. There are things you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Michael replied. I understand that you chose to destroy 15 years of marriage and my entire company to be with a criminal. It wasn't like that, Jessica shouted. You never paid attention to me. You never valued me. I was dying inside. And that justifies everything you did, Michael asked. Justifies trying to send me to prison with fake evidence? Jessica didn't answer. The patrol car door closed and she was driven away. Michael entered the house and went straight to the office. He began removing all the forged documents Brandon had planted. Every paper would serve as additional evidence in the case. As he worked, his phone rang. It was Frank, the detective. Michael, Brandon's been arrested, he said. And you won't believe what we found in his apartment. What? Hundreds of forged documents, Frank said. Contracts, certificates, receipts. He was preparing fake evidence against at least 6 different businessmen. 6? Apparently, you weren't the only target, Frank explained. Brandon was running the same scam on multiple people at once, using the same method. Exactly, Frank said. He seduced their wives, gained access to company files, sabotaged clients, and then used document forgery to take control of the businesses. The revelation hit Michael like a punch. Jessica wasn't an active participant in the scheme. She was just another victim being manipulated by Brandon. Frank, this changes everything, Michael said. How so? Jessica was manipulated, Michael said. She wasn't the mastermind, she was just a tool. Maybe, Frank said, but she actively took part in the conspiracy. She had 2 years to realize what was happening and choose the right side. Even so, Michael, don't be naive, Frank said. She knew exactly what she was doing. The recordings prove it. Michael knew Frank was right, but he couldn't help feeling a pang of pity for Jessica. For 2 years, she'd been manipulated by a professional criminal who knew exactly how to exploit her marital dissatisfaction. But that didn't change the fact that she had chosen to join the conspiracy. She had chosen to betray not just her husband, but also sabotage the company that supported their comfortable life. In the days that followed, the story spread quickly through the city's business community. Michael became an object of curiosity and, surprisingly, admiration for uncovering the conspiracy. Several clients who had cancelled contracts reached out to apologize and renew their business. Apparently, some of them had received anonymous calls from Brandon and now understood they had been manipulated. The company not only recovered, but grew. The story of how Michael had faced and defeated a complex conspiracy attracted new clients who admired his determination and intelligence. Jessica and Brandon were tried 3 months later. Brandon got 5 years in prison for forgery, conspiracy, corporate sabotage, and forming a criminal organization. Jessica got 2 years for complicity, but had her sentence suspended due to a clean record. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, during the trial, Jessica tried to approach Michael several times. Michael, I know I was wrong, she said during one hearing. But you have to understand, I was lost, confused. Brandon convinced me you didn't love me anymore. And you believed him instead of talking to me, Michael replied. 15 years of marriage and you chose to trust a stranger. He wasn't a stranger to me, Jessica said quietly. We met after you fired him. He was devastated, jobless, hopeless. I felt sorry for him. And pity turned into love. It wasn't like that, Jessica said. It was gradual. He listened to me, valued me, made me feel important. Things you'd stopped doing a long time ago. So it's my fault? It's no one's fault, Jessica said. We lost each other along the way. You got lost in work. I got lost in loneliness. But choosing to destroy everything we built together was your decision, Michael said. No one forced you. I know, Jessica said, tears in her eyes. I know I have no excuse for what I did. But Michael, at some point in our lives, we were happy. Doesn't that count for anything? Michael looked at the woman who had been his partner for 15 years. She seemed smaller, more fragile than he remembered. The weight of guilt was clearly destroying her. It counts, he finally said, but it's not enough to erase the last 2 years. I understand, Jessica said. I just wanted you to know I regret it. All of it. I believe you, Michael said, but regret doesn't undo what's been done. After the trial, Michael never saw Jessica again. He heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved to another city and was trying to rebuild her life. 6 months after the trial, Michael was in his office when Karen walked in with a smile. Michael, you have a visitor, she said. Who is it? A journalist from Small Business and Big Ventures, Karen said. She wants to do a story on how you overcame the crisis. I'm not interested, Michael said. That chapter of my life is over. She said your story could inspire other business owners going through similar situations, Karen insisted. Michael thought for a moment. Maybe his experience could actually help others. Fine, he said. But make it clear I don't want sensationalism. The journalist Amy Peterson was a 40-year-old woman with a professional and trustworthy demeanor. Mr. Thompson, your story has become legendary in the business world, she said. What was it like realizing you were being sabotaged by people so close to you? It was devastating, Michael said honestly. You question everything you know about relationships, trust, your ability to judge people. But you managed to turn things around. I did, Michael said, but it wasn't easy. There were moments I thought about giving up on everything. What stopped you from giving up? Responsibility, said Michael. I had 8 employees depending on me. I had my mother who needs my help. I had a company that took me 15 years to build. I couldn't let criminals destroy all of that. And what about the personal aspect? Asked Amy. How are you handling the end of your marriage? Michael was silent for a moment. It was painful, he finally said. 15 years of shared life don't just disappear, but I've learned it's possible to survive betrayal, disillusionment, disappointment. It's possible to rebuild. Do you believe in second chances? I believe in second chances for those who deserve them, said Michael. For those who make mistakes out of weakness, confusion, or immaturity. But I don't believe in second chances for those who deliberately choose to destroy other people's lives. And if Jessica showed up today asking for forgiveness, it wouldn't change anything, Michael said without hesitation. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I can forgive what she did, but I could never trust her again. Do you have plans to remarry? Not for now, said Michael. I'm focused on rebuilding my life, taking care of the business, enjoying my family. If love comes along again, I'll be open to it. But I'm not going out looking for it. The interview was published a month later and generated a lot of interest. Michael received hundreds of messages from people who had gone through similar situations and felt inspired by his story. One message in particular caught his attention. It was from a businesswoman in Boston named Helen Parker. Mr. Thompson, I read your interview in the magazine and related deeply to your story. I went through something similar 2 years ago. I discovered my business partner was sabotaging our company to benefit a competitor. Like you, I gathered evidence and took him to court. I'd love to talk to someone who understands what it means to be betrayed by someone close. If you're interested, my number is... Michael reread the message several times. There was something in the way Helen wrote that piqued his curiosity. He decided to call her. Helen, he said when she answered, this is Michael Thompson. I got your message. Michael, she said warmly, thank you for calling. I didn't expect you to reach out. Your story interested me, said Michael. It's rare to find someone who's been through something so similar. Exactly, said Helen. When I read your interview, it was like reading my own story. The difference is, in my case, it was a business partner, not a husband. How did you find out? Clients started canceling contracts without a convincing explanation, Helen explained. Later, I discovered they were receiving confidential information about our company. It took me months to realize it was my own partner leaking everything. And how did you prove it? I hired a private investigator, said Helen. He managed to photograph my partner handing documents to representatives from a competitor. That must have been devastating. It was, Helen agreed, especially because we'd been friends for over 10 years before starting the business together. The personal betrayal hurt more than the financial loss. I understand completely, said Michael. And how are you now? Much better, said Helen. The company recovered. I found trustworthy new partners, and I've learned to trust my instincts. And you? Similar, said Michael. The business has grown. I've learned to be more careful about who I trust, and I'm at peace with the decisions I've made. Michael, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you still feel angry? Sometimes, Michael admitted, especially when I think about the wasted time, the energy lost. But it's not destructive anger, more like sadness for the person she could have been. I understand, said Helen. It's hard to accept that people we loved could betray us in such a calculated way. The conversation went on for over an hour. Michael discovered that Helen was an intelligent, strong woman who had faced her crisis with the same determination as him. Helen, can I suggest something? Of course. How about we meet in person to talk, said Michael. It's rare to find someone who truly understands this experience. I'd love that, said Helen. Where do you suggest? There's a lovely cafe in Greenwich Village, said Michael. Quiet, private, good for long conversations. Perfect, said Helen. Saturday afternoon? Saturday afternoon, Michael agreed. On Saturday, Michael arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. He was nervous, something he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't exactly a romantic date, but it wasn't just a business meeting either. Helen arrived promptly at 3 in the afternoon. She was an attractive woman, elegantly but understatedly dressed, with her brown hair tied in a bun and wearing casual professional attire. But what caught Michael's attention most were her eyes. Intelligent, expressive, yet with a certain caution he recognized immediately. Michael, she asked as she approached. Helen, he said, standing to greet her. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. The pleasure's mine, she said, sitting down. You're exactly as I imagined from your voice on the phone. And how did you imagine me? Serious, dependable, but carrying a weight on your shoulders, Helen said with a smile. Am I right? Unfortunately, yes, Michael laughed. And you, do you feel like you're carrying a weight? Less than before, said Helen. But it's still there. They ordered coffee and talked for hours. Helen shared details of the betrayal she had endured, and Michael revealed parts of his story he hadn't even told his lawyer. What hurts the most, Helen said at one point, is that I felt something was off for months, but I chose to ignore the signs. Why? Because I didn't want to believe my best friend was capable of betraying me, she said. So I made the excuses for every suspicious behavior. I did the same thing, Michael admitted. For months I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to dig because I was afraid of what I might find. And now, asked Helen, do you trust your intuition? More than before, said Michael. But I've also become more cautious, maybe overly cautious. It's the price we pay, said Helen. We lose a bit of our innocence, but we gain wisdom, Michael added. True, Helen agreed, and we gain the certainty that we can survive anything. The sun was setting when they finally left the cafe. Michael offered to walk Helen to her car. Michael, thank you for this afternoon, she said. It's been a long time since I've talked to someone who understood me so well. The feeling's mutual, said Michael. Can I ask you something? Of course. Would you like to have dinner with me next week? Helen was silent for a few seconds. As friends, she asked. As two adults who'd like to get to know each other better, Michael said honestly. I'd like that, said Helen, but I need to be honest with you. I'm not looking for a serious relationship right now. Neither am I, said Michael. I'm looking for the company of someone intelligent and interesting. If something more develops over time, we'll see. No pressure. Under those conditions, I accept, Helen said with a smile. They had dinner the following Wednesday at a cozy Italian restaurant. The conversation flowed naturally, and Michael discovered that Helen had many more layers beyond the strong businesswoman who had faced betrayal. She had a degree in business, but had studied music in her youth. He played the piano, read voraciously, and had a passion for wine that rivaled that of professional sommeliers. "And you?" she asked. "What facets of Michael Thompson aren't in the magazine interview?" "I'm terrible at tennis, I cook better than most men, and I have a ridiculous collection of 80s vinyl records," said Michael. "Vinyl records?" said Helen, intrigued. "What kind of music?" "A bit of everything," said Michael. "Rock, pop, jazz, even some Brazilian classics. I started collecting as a teenager and never stopped." "I'd love to see your collection," said Helen. "Anytime," said Michael. "I'll make a decent cup of coffee to go with it." "Is that an invitation?" "It is," said Michael. The following Saturday, Helen went to Michael's house. It was the first time he'd had a woman over since his separation, and he was nervous. "Oh my," said Helen when she saw the record collection. "There must be over 1,000 albums here." 1,200 to be exact, said Michael proudly. A lifelong passion. Helen spent over an hour flipping through the records, commenting on artists, asking to hear specific songs. Michael was impressed by her musical knowledge. "Did you play professionally?" he asked. "I considered it," said Helen, "but my parents thought music wasn't a real career. I went into business instead, but music never left me." "Want to play something?" Michael asked, nodding toward the digital piano in the corner. "Really?" "Of course." Helen sat at the piano and began playing a piece by Chopin. Her hands moved with elegance and precision, filling the room with a melancholy beauty. Michael was mesmerized. There was something deeply attractive about a talented woman expressing her passion. When she finished, they sat in silence for a moment. "That was beautiful," Michael finally said. "Thank you," said Helen. "It's been a while since I played for someone." "Why?" "Because it's very personal," she said. "Music is where I put all my feelings. It's hard to share that with people." "Thank you for sharing it with me," said Michael. Helen looked into his eyes. "You're welcome," she said softly. There was a tension between them. Michael wanted to kiss her, but something held him back. "Helen, I know," she said. "I felt it too. But I don't think we're ready yet," said Helen. "Neither of us." "You're right," Michael agreed, though part of him disagreed. "That doesn't mean it won't happen," said Helen. "It just means when it does, it'll be at the right time." Michael smiled. "You're very wise." "Just careful," said Helen. "I've learned to be." They continued meeting regularly in the weeks that followed. Dinners, movies, visits to exhibitions. They built a solid friendship based on mutual respect and shared experiences. Michael discovered it was possible to be attracted to someone and still be patient. Helen was different from Jessica in every way, more mature, more thoughtful, more aware of her own emotions. 3 months after their first meeting, they were having dinner at Helen's place when she made a remark that changed everything. "Michael, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "This morning I was thinking about you," she said, "and I realized it wasn't just as a friend." Michael stopped eating and looked at her. "How then?" "As a woman thinking about a man she admires," said Helen, "as someone starting to feel something deeper." "And how do you feel about that?" "Scared," Helen admitted, "but also excited." "Scared why?" Because I don't want to repeat past mistakes," said Helen. "I don't want to give myself to someone who might betray me." "And could I betray you?" "Anyone can betray anyone," said Helen. "But looking at you, seeing how you handled your own betrayal, I believe you understand the value of loyalty." "I do," said Michael. "And you, could you betray me?" "I could," said Helen honestly, "but I won't. Betrayal is a choice, and I choose to be loyal to the people." "I love it. And do you love me?" Helen was silent for a long moment. "I'm learning to love you," she finally said, "and it scares me and excites me at the same time." Michael stood up from his chair and walked over to where Helen was sitting. He reached out his hand to her. "May I kiss you?" "I was hoping you'd ask," said Helen, taking his hand. Hand standing up. The first kiss was soft, careful, full of unspoken promises. When they pulled away, both were smiling. "It was worth waiting," said Helen. "It was," Michael agreed. "Worth every second." They officially started dating that night. It was a relationship unlike anything Michael had experienced before, built on complete honesty, open communication, and mutual respect for past wounds. 6 months later, they decided to move in together. Helen sold her apartment and moved into Michael's house, but not before long conversations about expectations, boundaries, and future plans. "I want you to know I'm not looking for a provider," said Helen. "I have my own business, my own income. I'm here because I want to be with you. And I want you to know I'm not looking for someone to take care of me," said Michael. "I've learned to live on my own. I'm here because I choose to share my life with you." Living together was surprisingly easy. Both were mature adults who knew what they wanted and didn't want. They respected each other's space, but also cherished their time together deeply. Michael introduced Helen to Mrs. Dorothy, his mother, who immediately adored her new daughter-in-law. "She's so different from Jessica," Mrs. Dorothy remarked one Sunday while Helen was cooking for the family. "She has substance, character." "She does," Michael agreed. "And she looks at you the way a woman should look at the man she loves," Mrs. Dorothy added. "With admiration, but not submission. With love, but not dependence." "So you like her?" "I adore her," said Mrs. Dorothy. "And more importantly, she's good for you." "You've started smiling again, son." It was true. Michael had regained not just his trust in relationships, but also his joy for life. His business was thriving, his personal life was in order, and by his side was a woman who complemented him perfectly. A year after they started dating, Michael and Helen were planning a trip to celebrate their anniversary when they received unexpected news. Brandon had been released from prison for good behavior. "He only served 2 years of his sentence," explained Dr. Richard Anderson over the phone, "but with good behavior and work in prison, he earned parole." "Could he try something against me?" Michael asked. "Theoretically, no," said the lawyer. "He has strict parole conditions, but I'd advise you to stay alert." "And Jessica?" Michael asked, surprised by his own curiosity. "I don't know," said Dr. Richard. "From what I heard, she moved out of town and hasn't had contact with Brandon since the trial." That evening, Michael told Helen about Brandon's release. "Are you worried?" she asked. "A little," Michael admitted. "I don't believe prison changed him." "But you've changed," said Helen. "You're not the same vulnerable person he took advantage of 3 years ago." "That's true," said Michael. "And now, I have you by my side." "Exactly," said Helen. "If he tries anything, we'll face it together." "Together," Michael repeated, liking the sound of the word. 2 weeks later, Michael was in his office when Karen rushed in. "Michael, there's a man here who wants to speak with you," she said nervously. "He says his name is Brandon Miller." Michael's blood ran cold. Brandon had come looking for him. "Where is he?" "In the reception area," said Karen. "I told him you were busy, but he insisted it was urgent." "Call building security," said Michael, "and notify the police, then send him in." "Are you sure?" "Yes," said Michael, "but I want witnesses nearby." 5 minutes later, Brandon walked into Michael's office. He was thinner, paler, but with the same arrogance in his eyes. "Michael," he said, sitting down uninvited, "we need to talk." "We have nothing to discuss," Michael said coldly. "I think we do," Brandon replied. "I came here with a proposal." "What proposal?" "You give me back what's mine, and I guarantee Jessica will never bother you again." Michael nearly laughed. "What's yours? You don't own anything." "I have information," Brandon said. "Information your new girlfriend might find interesting." "What information?" "About Helen's past," Brandon said with a malicious smile. "Things she probably hasn't told you." Michael felt a stab of anxiety but kept his composure. "Helen has nothing to hide from me." "Are you sure?" Brandon asked. "Did you know the partner who betrayed her wasn't actually a traitor?" "What are you talking about?" "She made the whole story up," Brandon said. "Planted fake evidence against her own partner to take full control of the company." The accusation hit Michael like a punch to the gut. For a moment, all his insecurities resurfaced. "You're lying." "Am I?" Brandon said. "Then why was her partner never put on trial? Why did he just disappear after the betrayal was uncovered?" Michael tried to recall the details of the story. Helen had told him. It was true, she'd never mentioned a trial or arrest. "You have no proof," Michael said. "Oh, but I do," Brandon replied, pulling an envelope from his pocket. Documents proving Helen fabricated evidence against her partner. Fake photos, altered contracts, all very well done. Why do you have these? Because I helped her, Brandon said. I taught Helen how to forge evidence. She was my first student before she tried the same with you. Michael felt the world spinning. If Brandon was telling the truth, his entire relationship with Helen was built on a lie. What do you want? $50,000, Brandon said. In exchange, I disappear and you keep your criminal girlfriend. And if I don't pay, then I go to the police, Brandon said. Helen goes to jail and you'll find out you're dating someone even worse than your ex-wife. Michael looked at Brandon and made a decision. Get out, he said calmly. What? You heard me. Leave my office before I call security. Michael, you don't understand, Brandon said. I have proof. You have nothing, Michael interrupted. Just another set of fake documents you created. Yourself. These are real. Even if they were, Michael said, standing up, I wouldn't give you a single cent. Now get out before I have you arrested for extortion. Brandon was clearly frustrated. He'd apparently expected Michael to panic, just as Jessica had. You'll regret this, Brandon said, rising to his feet. The only regret I have is not realizing sooner what kind of person you are, Michael replied. Now get out of my sight. Brandon stormed out, seething with anger, but Michael knew he wouldn't give up easily. That night, Michael arrived home, deeply troubled. Helen realized immediately that something was wrong. What happened? She asked. Michael recounted the entire conversation with Brandon, including the accusations against her. And you believe him? Helen asked when he finished. I don't know what to believe, Michael said honestly. Can you tell me exactly what happened with your former partner? Helen was silent for a long moment. Michael, I need to tell you something, she finally said. Michael's heart raced. Were Brandon's accusations true? The story I told you about my former partner isn't entirely true, Helen admitted. Michael felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. What do you mean? He really was sabotaging the company, Helen said, but I didn't have enough proof to take him to court. So you fabricated evidence? No, Helen replied. I did something different, something I'm not proud of, but it had to be done. What? I blackmailed him, Helen confessed. I found out he'd been evading taxes for years. I threatened to report him to the IRS if he didn't leave the company and sell me his share for a symbolic amount. And he agreed. He did, Helen said. He'd rather lose the company than go to jail for tax evasion. Michael processed the information. It wasn't what Brandon had suggested, but it was still a significant omission in Helen's story. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I'm ashamed, Helen admitted. Blackmail isn't noble, even when used against a dishonest person. Is there anything else you haven't told me? No, Helen said. That's the only thing I left out. Michael looked into her eyes and saw sincerity, not the same deceit he'd seen in Jessica's gaze. Helen, can I ask you something? Of course. If you were in my position, would you trust someone who left out a major part of their story? Helen thought carefully before answering. It would depend on the reason for the omission, she said. If it was to deceive or manipulate me, no. If it was out of shame for something they'd done in the past, I'd try to understand. And which is it for you? Shame, Helen said without hesitation. Pure shame for using questionable methods even against someone who was harming me. Michael believed her. There was a fundamental difference between hiding something out of shame and hiding something out of malice. Okay, he said. I accept your explanation. Really? Helen asked, surprised. Really, Michael replied. We all have things in our past we're not proud of. What matters is that you told me the truth when I asked. Thank you, Helen said, relieved. And, Michael? Yes? If Brandon tries anything else, we'll face it together. I won't let him destroy what we've built. Neither will I, Michael said, embracing her. But Brandon didn't give up. Over the following weeks, he tried various tactics to torment Michael and Helen. First, he spread rumors about Michael's company in the local business community, suggesting he was involved in fraudulent activities. Then he contacted Helen's clients, offering consulting services at rock-bottom prices and insinuating she wasn't trustworthy. Finally, he began following them, showing up at restaurants where they dined, the club where Michael played tennis, even outside Helen's apartment building. "This is stalking," Helen said after finding Brandon waiting for her in the company parking lot for the third time. "Let's go to the police," Michael insisted. They filed a complaint for harassment and threats, but the police said they needed more evidence to arrest Brandon again. "He's being careful," the detective explained. "No direct threats, no trespassing, no technical crimes. It's hard to prove stalking with what you've got so far." "And what do we do?" asked Michael. "Document everything," said the detective. "Photos, timestamps, witnesses. If we can establish a clear pattern of harassment, then we can act." Michael and Helen began meticulously documenting every sighting of Brandon. Photos, videos, witness statements. Everything was catalogued and handed over to the police. 3 weeks later, they had enough evidence. Brandon was arrested again, this time for stalking and disturbing the peace. "This time, he won't get." "How so soon?" said Dr. Richard. "Violating parole means going back to prison to serve the remainder of his original sentence, plus additional time for the new charges." "How long?" "At least 3 more years," said the lawyer. "And when he gets out, he'll face even stricter restrictions." With Brandon back behind bars, Michael and Helen could finally live in peace. Michael's business continued to grow, and Helen expanded hers to 2 new cities. 2 years later, on a December evening, Michael was planning a surprise for Helen. It was the eve of their 3-year anniversary, and he had made an important decision. "Helen," he said over dinner, "I want to ask you something." "Go ahead." "How do you feel about our future?" "What do you mean?" "We've both proven we can face hardships together," said Michael. "We've proven we trust each other, respect each other, that we've built something solid." "We really have," Helen agreed. "Where are you going with this?" "I want to know if you see yourself with me in 10, 20 years, said Michael. "If you believe what we have can last forever." Helen smiled. "Michael, are you proposing to me?" "Not yet," Michael said with a grin. "Just doing some market research before making the investment." Helen laughed warmly. "Well, your market research looks very promising," she said. "Yes, I do see myself with you in 10, 20 years. I see myself growing old by your side, facing new challenges, building new dreams. Even knowing I'm a complicated man with scars, with emotional wounds. Especially because of that," Helen said. "Because your scars match mine. Because we understand each other's pain." "What if I asked you a more specific question?" "What question?" Michael stood up from his chair and knelt beside the table, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Helen Parker, will you marry me?" Helen covered her mouth, clearly surprised. "My God, Michael!" "I know we're not young and naive anymore," he said. "I know we've both been through relationships that ended badly, but I also know what we have is real. Mature, built on solid ground." Tears welled in Helen's eyes. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Michael slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her. It was a moment of pure happiness, earned after so much hardship and growth. "When?" Helen asked when they pulled apart. "Whenever you want," said Michael. "Tomorrow, if you'll have me." "How about next summer?" Helen suggested. "We could have a small ceremony, just family and close friends." "Perfect," Michael agreed. They spent the rest of the night planning their future, talking about shared dreams and the life they'd build together. It was a future neither had been sure was possible just a few years earlier. The next morning, Michael called Mrs. Dorothy to share the news. "Mom, I have some news," he said. "Good or bad?" she asked. "Good," said Michael. "Really good. I proposed to Helen last night." "And she said yes?" Mrs. Dorothy asked, though her tone made it clear she already knew the answer. "She did," Michael said. "Thank heavens," his mother replied. "It's about time. You two are perfect for each other." "Do you really like her?" "I adore her," said Mrs. Dorothy. "She's everything a mother could wish for her son, smart, independent, caring, and most importantly, she truly loves you." "How do you know?" "Because I see it in her eyes," Mrs. Dorothy replied, "and because I've seen how you've changed since she came into your life. You've become the joyful son I once knew again." "Thank you, Mom." "For what?" "For supporting me through the whole crisis with Jessica," said Michael. "I know it was hard for you too. "Son, that's what family is for," Mrs. Dorothy said. "We stick together through good times and bad, and now we're in a very good time." In the following months, Michael and Helen carefully and lovingly planned their wedding. It would be a small but elegant ceremony at a charming inn in the Catskill Mountains. 2 months before the wedding, when preparations were nearly complete, Michael received an unexpected call. "Hello?" he answered. "Michael," said a familiar female voice. "Jessica?" Michael felt his stomach twist. "Yes, it's me," she said. "Can we talk? What do you want?" "I need to see you," Jessica replied. "It's important." "We have nothing to talk about," Michael said. "Michael, please," Jessica insisted. "Just 15 minutes. There are things you need to know." "What things?" "I can't say over the phone," Jessica said. "Can you meet me at the cafe we used to go to? Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon." Michael was silent for a moment. Part of him was curious about what Jessica wanted. Another part just wanted to hang up and forget she existed. "Michael?" Jessica called. "I'll go," he finally said. "But only 15 minutes." "Thank you," Jessica replied. "See you tomorrow." That night, Michael told Helen about the call. "What do you think she wants?" Helen asked. "I have no idea," Michael said. "Maybe she wants to apologize. Maybe she wants to try something. Maybe she just wants closure. Do you want me to come with you?" "No," Michael replied. "It's something I need to handle alone." "Okay," Helen said. "But if you need me, just call." "Do I really have to?" "Have to what?" "Handle this alone," Michael said. "Or can I just ignore the call and move on with my life?" Helen thought for a moment. "You could ignore it," she said. "But if you do, you'll always wonder what she wanted. And that might bother you forever. So it's better to go. It's better to go and close this chapter for good," Helen said. "That way you can marry me without any unfinished business from the past." The next day, Michael arrived at the cafe promptly at 3 in the afternoon. Jessica was already there, sitting at a table in the back. She looked different, thinner, with shorter hair and simpler clothes. She seemed like a diminished version of the confident woman he'd once known. "Hi, Michael," she said as he approached. "Jessica," he replied, sitting down. "You have 15 minutes. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know I don't deserve it. What do you want?" "First, I want to apologize," Jessica said. "I know it's not enough. I know it doesn't undo what I did, but I need you to know how deeply I regret it." "You already said that." "At the trial," Michael replied. "I know," Jessica said, "but this time is different. This time I'm not trying to get anything from you. I just want you to know the truth." "What truth?" "The truth about Brandon, about me, about everything that happened," Jessica said. Michael looked at her skeptically. "Go on." "Brandon manipulated me from day one," Jessica said. "He planned everything meticulously. He knew exactly how to approach me, what to say, how to make me feel special. And that justifies what you did." "It doesn't justify it," Jessica said quickly. "Nothing does, but it explains how I could do something so terrible. Keep going." "He made me believe you didn't love me anymore," said Jessica. "He said you were planning to leave me, that you were just waiting for the company to recover before filing for divorce." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to," admitted Jessica, "because it was easier than admitting our marriage was in trouble, because of both of us." "At least you admit it now." "I do," said Jessica. "Michael, I know you're getting married." The news caught Michael by surprise. "How do you know?" "A mutual friend told me," said Jessica, "and I wanted you to know I'm happy for you." "Happy? You deserve to be happy," said Jessica. "You deserve someone who values you, who truly loves you. I didn't know how to do that." "No, you didn't," Michael agreed. "Helen seems like a wonderful woman," said Jessica. "She is. And she makes you happy." "Very," said Michael. "That's good," said Jessica, and for the first time since the conversation began, she smiled. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." "Jessica, why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to know I don't hold any grudges," she said. "You had every right to report me, to sue me, to seek justice. I was wrong and you were right. And you, how are you?" "Surviving," said Jessica. "I work at a small accounting firm out of town. I don't make much, live in a simple house, but I'm at peace with myself." "Are you seeing anyone?" "No," said Jessica. and I don't plan to anytime soon. I need to learn to live alone, to be independent, to make the right decisions. And Brandon? I haven't had any contact with him since, said Jessica, and I don't want to. I realized he never loved me. I was just a tool to get what he wanted. Michael was silent for a moment. Jessica, can I ask you something? Of course. If you could go back in time, what would you do differently? Everything, said Jessica without hesitation. I would have talked to you when I first felt unhappy. I would have gotten therapy for both of us. I would have fought for our marriage instead of looking for an easy way out. And if it still didn't work, at least it would have ended with dignity, said Jessica. No lies, no betrayals, no attempts to destroy your life. Michael looked at the woman who had been his wife for 15 years. She seemed genuinely remorseful, genuinely different from the manipulative person who had conspired against him. Jessica, I forgive you, he said. What? I forgive you, Michael repeated. Not for what you did to me, but for what you did to yourself. You destroyed your own life as much as you tried to destroy mine. Jessica began to cry. Thank you, she said. You don't know how much this means to me. It means something, but it doesn't change anything, said Michael. I forgive you, but I'll never forget, and I'll never trust you again. I understand, said Jessica, and I'm not asking for trust, I just wanted peace. Then we have peace, said Michael, standing up. Good luck with your new life, Jessica. Good luck with your wedding, Michael, she said. Be happy. Michael left the cafe with a strange feeling. It wasn't happiness, it wasn't sadness, it was closure. The chapter of Jessica was finally over in his life. When he got home, he told Helen everything. How do you feel? She asked. Relieved, said Michael. I can finally move forward without any loose ends from the past. And do you believe she's changed? I believe she's learned, said Michael. Whether she's truly changed, only time will tell. But it's no longer my problem. You're right, said Helen. From now on, it's just us that matters. 3 weeks later, on a sunny January morning, Michael and Helen were married at a lodge in the Catskill Mountains. The ceremony was small, but beautiful, with just 30 guests, family and closest friends. Mrs. Dorothy cried through the entire ceremony. These are tears of joy, she explained to anyone who asked. My son has finally found the happiness he deserves. During the celebration, Michael gave a speech that moved everyone present. A few years ago, he said, I thought my life was over. I had lost trust in people, in love, in myself. Today, by Helen's side, I realized that crisis wasn't the end of my story. It was just the closing of a bad chapter to make way for the beginning of a wonderful one. Helen taught me it's possible to love again after betrayal, Michael continued. That it's possible to trust again after being deceived. That it's possible to be happy again after so much pain. And most importantly, she taught me that true love isn't the kind that never faces hardships. It's the kind that overcomes them together, grows through challenges, and strengthens with adversity. Helen also gave a speech. Michael, she said, when we met, we were two wounded people, trying to heal our own scars. We discovered our scars fit together perfectly, like pieces of a puzzle. You showed me it's possible to build something beautiful from the ruins of the past. That pain can become wisdom, disappointment can turn into caution, and suffering can transform into compassion. I promise to love you not just in happy moments, but especially in the difficult ones, she said, because it's in the hard times that true love reveals itself. The party lasted until dawn. The newlyweds danced, mingled with guests, and celebrated the start of their new life together with great joy. For their honeymoon, they went to an inn on the coast of Cape Cod. It was a peaceful place, perfect for relaxing and planning their future. Michael, Helen said one morning as they had coffee on the balcony overlooking the ocean, can I tell you about a dream I have? Of course. I want to have children with you, she said. Michael nearly dropped his coffee cup. Children. I know we're not young anymore, Helen said. I'm 38, you're 42, but there's still time. You really want this? Very much, Helen said. I want to see what a child with your intelligence and determination would be like. And if they inherit my stubbornness and... Your independence? Michael joked. That would be an interesting child, Helen laughed. Helen, can I be honest with you? Always. I want to have children with you too, Michael said. But I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid I won't be a good father, he admitted. Afraid of repeating the mistakes I made in my last marriage. What mistakes? Working so much that I neglected my family, Michael said. Not giving enough attention to the people I love. Michael, you've learned from those mistakes, Helen said. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago, and I won't let you lose yourself in work again. How? By demanding your presence, Helen said. Making sure you set aside time for family, reminding you constantly what really matters. And what if I still make the same mistakes? Then we'll talk, we'll adjust, we'll fix it, Helen said, together, like a mature couple should. Michael thought for a few minutes. All right, he finally said. Let's try to have children. Really? Helen asked excitedly. Really, Michael confirmed, but on one condition. What? If I start losing myself in work again, you kick me, he said. Literally, Helen laughed. If necessary, Michael said. They returned from their honeymoon determined to start a family. In the following months, while managing their businesses, they focused on trying to conceive. It wasn't easy. After 6 months without success, they sought medical help. There's nothing wrong with either of you, the doctor said after running tests. Sometimes it really takes time. You both need to be patient and not stress over it. Easier said than done, Helen remarked as they left the doctor's office. We'll keep trying, said Michael. And if it doesn't happen naturally, we can consider other options. What other options? In vitro fertilization, adoption, Michael replied. What matters is that we have children. How they come to us doesn't matter. 6 more months passed with no results. Helen was starting to grow anxious and depressed. What if we can't have children? She asked one night. Then we'll be a happy couple without children, Michael said. Or we'll become adoptive parents. There are thousands of children who need a family. Would you really be willing to adopt? Of course, Michael said. A child is a child no matter where they come from. But what if I can't love a child who didn't come from me? You will, Michael said with certainty, because your heart is too big not to love a child who needs you. The following month, Helen discovered she was pregnant. Michael, she called from the bathroom one morning. Come here. What is it? He asked, rushing over. Look at this, Helen said, holding up the pregnancy test. Michael stared at the 2 lines on the test and felt the world stop. Positive? He asked. Positive, Helen confirmed, tears of joy streaming down her face. They embraced and cried together. After a year of trying, they had finally succeeded. We're going to be parents, Michael said, still not quite believing it. We're going to be parents, Helen repeated. The pregnancy progressed without major complications. Helen had some morning sickness, but nothing that disrupted her routine. Michael became the most attentive husband in the world, overseeing every detail of her diet and exercise. Michael, I'm not made of glass, Helen complained when he stopped her from carrying a folder of documents. I know, he said, but this is our first child. I want everything to go right. It will, Helen reassured him. Relax. In the 5th month, they found out they were having a boy. Ethan, Helen said as they looked at the ultrasound. I want to name him Ethan. Why Ethan? Because Ethan means strong and enduring, Helen explained. And our son is the greatest blessing we've ever received. Ethan Thompson, Michael said, testing the name. I like it. In the following months, they devoted themselves to preparing the nursery, buying baby supplies and attending parenting classes. It was a completely new experience for both of them, and they cherished every moment. Helen, Michael said one night as they assembled the crib, can I confess something? Of course. Sometimes I stop and think about how different my life would be if I hadn't discovered Jessica's betrayal. What do you mean? If I'd stayed in the dark, Michael explained, I'd still be married to a woman who didn't love me, being sabotaged by a criminal living a lie. And you never would have met me, Helen added. Exactly, Michael said. I never would have met you, never would have known real love, never would have had Ethan. What are you trying to say? That sometimes the worst things that happen to us are necessary for the best things to come, Michael said. If I hadn't gone through all that pain, I never would have reached this happiness. That's an interesting way to look at it, Helen said. It's the only way that makes sense, Michael replied, because if I stay angry about the past, I won't be able to enjoy the present. You don't feel anger toward Jessica anymore? No, Michael said. I pity her too. She lost the chance to live all of this. And Brandon, him. I still feel anger, Michael admitted, because he didn't act out of love or confusion, he acted out of pure malice. But the anger isn't consuming you anymore. No, Michael said, because my life is full of good things. There's no room left for bad feelings. Ethan was born on a September morning after 8 hours of labor. Michael was there for the entire birth, holding Helen's hand and encouraging her. When the baby finally arrived and the doctor placed him in Helen's arms, Michael cried like he hadn't in years. He's perfect, said Helen, looking at her son. He looks just like us, said Michael, gently running his finger over the baby's face. Just like us? He has your eyes and my nose, Michael replied. And look at these tiny hands, they're going to be pianist hands like his mother's. Ethan truly was a perfect baby. He slept well, nursed well, and rarely cried. It was as if he understood he had been born into a family that loved him immensely. Michael, Helen said a few weeks later, do you regret waiting so long to become a father? No, Michael answered. I don't think I was ready before. I needed to go through everything I did to become the father Ethan deserves. What kind of father do you want to be for him? Present, Michael said without hesitation. I want to be here for every important moment. I want him to know he can always count on me. And work? Work will still be important, Michael said, but it'll never be the most important thing again. The most important thing is right here in this house. Michael kept his promise. He cut back his hours at the office, delegated more responsibilities to Karen and other employees, and devoted himself fully to his family. When Ethan turned 6 months old, Helen went back to work part-time. They hired a nanny to help, but made sure they were present most of the time. We're helicopter parents, Helen admitted during a dinner with friends. And we'll stay that way, Michael said. We've earned the right. You deserve it, a friend replied. After everything you've been through, you deserve all the happiness in the world. Ethan grew up healthy and happy. By 8 months, he was crawling all over the house. At 10 months, he said his first word, Daddy. Did you hear that? Michael said emotionally to Helen. He said, Daddy. Of course I heard, Helen laughed. You talked to him all day. It was obvious that would be his first word. And his second word will be Mommy, Michael said. I'll teach him. But Ethan's second word was water, and his third was Mommy, much to Helen's relief. When Ethan turned 1, they threw a small but special party. Mrs. Dorothy, who at 75 was more active than many 50-year-olds, helped organize everything. I never thought I'd live to see a great-grandchild, she said, holding Ethan in her arms. Great-grandchild? Helen asked. To me, you two are like my own children, Mrs. Dorothy explained. So Ethan is my great-grandchild in my heart. And what does Grandma want as a birthday gift from Ethan? Michael teased. More great-grandchildren, Mrs. Dorothy said without hesitation. Lots more. Mom, Michael protested. What? Mrs. Dorothy replied. Ethan needs siblings, and you two are at the perfect age to have more kids. Helen and Michael exchanged glances. They had been talking about having more children, but hadn't made a final decision yet. We'll see, Helen said diplomatically. We won't see anything, Mrs. Dorothy insisted. We'll do. Ethan will turn 2 and have a little brother or sister. You've already decided everything, haven't you? Michael laughed. Someone has to make the important decisions in this family, Mrs. Dorothy said. 3 months later, Helen was pregnant again. Your mother is psychic, Helen told Michael when they shared the news with Mrs. Dorothy. I'm not psychic. The grandmother said, I just know my son well. I could see in his eyes that he wanted more children. And how did you know I wanted it too? Helen asked. Because I've seen how you look at children on the street, said Mrs. Dorothy. A woman who looks like that always wants more children. The second pregnancy was even smoother than the first. Helen had no nausea, no complications, and worked normally until the 8th month. "This time it's going to be a girl," said Michael, looking at the ultrasound. "How do you know?" asked Helen. "A father's intuition," said Michael. And he was right. It was a girl. "Sophia," said Helen. "I want her name to be Sophia." "Why Sophia?" "Because Sophia means wisdom," Helen explained, "and our daughter will need a lot of wisdom to deal with 2 doting parents and an overprotective brother." Sophia was born on a spring afternoon, 2 weeks before Ethan's 2nd birthday. The delivery was faster than the first, just 4 hours. Ethan was fascinated by his little sister. He would spend hours watching her sleep, trying to make her laugh, bringing her toys. "He's going to be a very protective brother," Helen observed. "Like his father," Michael said proudly. With 2 young children, the house became much livelier. But Michael and Helen loved the new dynamic. It was chaotic, exhausting, and absolutely wonderful. "Michael," Helen said one night after putting the children to bed, "are you happy?" "Immensely," Michael answered without hesitation. "Happier than I ever imagined possible, even with all the work it takes to raise 2 small children." "Especially because of that," Michael said. "Every difficult moment is worth it when I see the 3 of you sleeping peacefully." "And you don't miss the life we had before?" "What life?" Michael asked. "The life of a frustrated workaholic married to a traitor. No, thank you." "No, silly," Helen laughed. "The child-free couple's life, the romantic trips, the dinners for 2, the freedom." Michael thought for a moment. "I don't miss it," he finally said, "because I discovered there was a void in my life I didn't even know existed. Ethan and Sophia filled that void." "And me," Helen teased. "Didn't I fill any void?" "You filled all the voids," Michael said, kissing her. The children just added more joy. When Sophia turned 6 months old, the family received unexpected news. Brandon had been released from prison again. "He served his full sentence this time," Dr. Richard explained over the phone. "There's nothing more we can legally do to keep him locked up." "What about the restrictions?" "He can't come near you," the lawyer said. "But other than that, he's free." "Could he try something?" Michael asked. "Theoretically, no," said Dr. Richard, "but I recommend you stay alert." Michael shared the news with Helen that night. "I'm worried," she admitted. "Now we have the children to protect." "He won't dare do anything," Michael said. "He knows if he tries anything, he'll go straight back to prison." "What if he's desperate?" Helen asked. "Desperate people do unpredictable things. Then we'll take precautions," Michael said. "I'll hire security for the house and the office." "Do you think it's necessary?" "I think it's prudent," Michael replied. "I won't take risks with my family's safety." They hired a discreet but efficient security company. Cameras were installed throughout the house, a modern alarm system was set up, and a guard began making nightly rounds. The precautions turned out to be unnecessary. Brandon gave no sign of life for months. Apparently, he had learned his lesson and decided to rebuild his life far from them. "Maybe he really has changed," Helen remarked after 6 months without incident. "Maybe," Michael agreed. "Or maybe he's planning something." "You don't believe people can change?" "I do," Michael said. "I believe you've changed, that I've changed, that even Jessica has changed. But Brandon is different." "Why?" "Because he didn't act out of emotion or confusion," explained Michael. "He acted with calculated malice. People like that rarely truly change." Michael was right. A year after his release, Brandon reappeared in a way none of them expected. Helen was leaving the supermarket with the children when she saw him standing by her car in the parking lot. "Helen," he said as she approached. "Brandon," she replied, instinctively pulling Ethan and Sophia closer. "What do you want?" "To talk," said Brandon. "Just talk." "You're violating the restraining order," Helen said. "You can't come near me." "Technically, I didn't approach you," Brandon replied. "I was here by chance." "By chance?" Helen said skeptically. "All right, it wasn't by chance," Brandon admitted, "but I need to talk to you. We have nothing to discuss." "We do," Brandon insisted. "It's about Michael." "What about Michael?" "There are things about him you don't know," Brandon said. "Things that could affect your children." Helen felt a chill of fear, but tried to stay calm. What things? I can't talk here, Brandon said, glancing around. Too many people, too much movement. Then we won't talk, Helen said, trying to walk past him. Helen, wait, Brandon said, lightly grabbing her arm. Let go, Helen said firmly. Sorry, Brandon said, releasing her immediately. But you need to hear me out. It's about your children's safety. What do you mean? Michael isn't who you think he is, Brandon said. There are things in his past that could put you all in danger. Helen looked at Ethan and Sophia, who were growing restless. You have 2 minutes, she said. Speak quickly. Not here, Brandon insisted. Can we meet at a cafe tomorrow? Just for a few minutes? I won't. Meet you alone, Helen said. Then bring someone, Brandon suggested. A friend, a family member, but you need to know the truth. Helen hesitated. Part of her knew she was making a mistake by considering meeting Brandon, but another part was curious and worried. Central Cafe, she finally said. Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon, and I'll bring my lawyer. Perfect, Brandon said. Thank you for giving me this chance. Helen arrived home unsettled. She told Michael everything, and he was furious. You're not meeting him, Michael said firmly. Why not? Helen asked. If there's something I need to know about, I'd rather find out now. There's nothing to find out, Michael said. Brandon is trying to manipulate you like he did Jessica. Then why are you afraid of me talking to him? I'm not afraid, Michael said. I'm angry. Angry that he's trying to destroy our family. He said it's about the children's safety, Helen replied. Helen, do you really believe anything that comes out of that man's mouth? Michael asked. No, Helen admitted. But what if it's true? What if there's something I need to know? There isn't, Michael insisted. My life is an open book to you. You know my past, my present, my plans for the future. Then there's no problem with me talking to him, Helen said. If he's lying, I'll see right through it. Helen, Michael, trust me, Helen said. I know Brandon is manipulative. I know he's trying to cause trouble between us, but I also know our relationship is strong enough to withstand any lie he tells. Michael was silent for a few moments. All right, he finally said, but I'm coming with you. No, Helen said. If you're there, he won't talk, and I need to hear what he has to say. Then take Dr. Richard with you. I will, Helen agreed. The next day, Helen arrived at Central Cafe accompanied by her lawyer. Brandon was already there, seated at a discreet table in the back of the establishment. Helen, he said, standing as she approached. Thank you for coming. Dr. Richard Anderson, the lawyer introduced himself. Helen's attorney. Brandon Miller, Brandon said, extending his hand. Dr. Richard didn't shake it. Let's get straight to the point, the lawyer said. What do you have to say? Brandon sat down and pulled a folder from the briefcase he'd brought. Michael never told you he had other partners before starting the company on his own, he said. Other partners? Helen asked. 2, Brandon replied. Charles Foster and Andrew Scott. Both vanished mysteriously 15 years ago. What do you mean vanished? Dr. Richard asked. Disappeared, Brandon said. Charles was found in a hotel in Miami Beach, apparently a victim of a heart attack. Andrew was never found. Helen felt a chill. What does this have to do with Michael? Everything, Brandon said, opening the folder. Michael was the accountant for the partnership. He had access to all the money. When the partners died, he kept everything. Are you suggesting Michael killed his partners? Dr. Richard asked skeptically. I'm not suggesting, Brandon said. I'm stating it outright. Based on what? Helen asked. Based on this, Brandon said, showing them documents. Police reports, bank statements, hospital records. Dr. Richard examined the papers for a few minutes. These documents appear authentic, he told Helen, but they don't prove anything beyond the fact that Michael had partners who died. Look at the dates, Brandon insisted. Charles died exactly 1 week after signing $1 million contract. Andrew vanished 3 days after discovering discrepancies in the accounting. And how do you know this? Helen asked. Because I was there, Brandon said. I worked for them before I worked for Michael. That's impossible, Dr. Richard said. You're too young to have worked with them 15 years ago. I was an intern, Brandon explained. 19 years old. I saw it all happen. Helen grew more confused and uneasy. Why didn't you ever say anything before? Because I didn't have proof, Brandon said, and because Michael threatened me. How so? When I started working for him years later, I tried to investigate what happened to Charles and Andrew, Brandon said. Michael found out and told me if I ever spoke up, I'd end up like them. And why are you speaking up now? Dr. Richard asked. Because now he has a family, Brandon said, and Helen needs to know who she's married to. Helen looked at the documents again. There were so many papers, so many details, so many coincidences. Brandon, even if all this is true, she said, why should I believe you? You've lied so many times before. Because this time I have nothing to gain, Brandon said. I don't want money, I don't want revenge. I just want you to protect your children. Protect them from what? From a man capable of killing his own partners, Brandon said. Helen, do you really believe someone like that would never harm you or your family? Michael would never hurt me or the children, Helen said firmly. Jessica thought the same thing, Brandon said, until she found out the truth. What truth? That Michael was planning to kill her too, Brandon said. That's why she agreed to help me. It wasn't betrayal for betrayal's sake. It was self-defense. Helen felt sick. If Brandon was telling the truth, her entire life was a lie. I need to go, she said, standing abruptly. Helen, wait, Brandon said. There's more you need to know. Not today, Helen said. I need to process all this. Be careful, Brandon said as she walked away, and don't tell Michael we spoke. It could be dangerous. On the way back home, Helen was completely silent. Dr. Richard tried talking to her several times, but she barely responded. Helen, you can't believe these accusations, the lawyer finally said. Brandon is a convicted criminal. He's clearly trying to manipulate you. What if it's true? Helen asked. It's not, Dr. Richard replied. I've known Michael for years. He isn't capable of killing anyone. How can you be so sure? Because I've seen him in extreme situations, Dr. Richard explained. Throughout the case against Brandon and Jessica, he always acted within the law, always sought justice through the right channels. A murderer wouldn't behave that way. But what if... Helen, listen to me, Dr. Richard interrupted. Brandon is using the same tactic he used with Jessica. He's planting doubts, creating fears, destroying trust. Do you think I should tell Michael? I think you should, Dr. Richard said, and you should ask him to explain about those business partners. I'm sure there's a rational explanation for everything. That night, after putting the children to bed, Helen told Michael everything. Charles Foster and Andrew Scott, Michael said, clearly surprised. I haven't heard those names in a long time. So it's true, Helen asked. You had partners who died? I did, Michael confirmed, but it wasn't anything like Brandon suggested. Tell me the truth, Helen pleaded, the whole truth. Michael sighed and sat beside her on the couch. Charles, Andrew and I were college friends, he began. After graduation, we decided to start a business together. Each of us invested $20,000. What happened? After 2 years, we realized it wasn't a good partnership, Michael said. Charles was irresponsible with money. Andrew was lazy and I was doing all the work. And then? We decided to dissolve the partnership, Michael said. Each of us would go our own way. But they died. Charles died of a heart attack 3 years after we split, Michael explained. He always had heart problems. He was obese, smoked 2 packs a day. And Andrew moved abroad, Michael said. The last I heard from him was 10 years ago. He was living in Canada, so he didn't die. Not that I know of, Michael said. We just lost touch. Helen felt relieved, but still had doubts. Michael, why did you never tell me about these partners? Because it was a bad time in my life, Michael said. I lost 2 friends, lost money, almost gave up on having my own company. But it's nothing you should have hidden. I wasn't hiding it, Michael said. The subject just never came up. You never asked about my business ventures before the current one. Helen realized he was right. She had never really asked about his past business dealings in detail. And Brandon, she asked, why does he know this story? Because when I hired Brandon years later, I did a background check, Michael explained. I found out he had interned at a company that provided services for our old partnership. And you hired him anyway? Yes, Michael said. I didn't see a problem. Especially since he never worked directly with us. Michael, can I see the dissolution papers for the partnership? Of course, Michael said. They're in the bank vault. I can get them tomorrow. And can you try reaching out to Andrew? Helen asked. I can try, Michael said. But I can't promise I'll succeed. Please try, Helen urged. I need to be sure. Helen, do you really think I'm capable of killing someone? Michael asked, clearly hurt. No, Helen said quickly, but Brandon was very convincing and... I have young children to protect. I understand, Michael said, and I admire you for being cautious. That's what a good mother should do. The next day, Michael brought all the documents related to the old partnership. Helen examined everything carefully with Dr. Richard. Everything is in order, said the lawyer. The dissolution was done legally. The assets were divided proportionally. Nothing seems suspicious. And Frank's death certificate. Massive heart attack, Dr. Richard read. Happened at home in his wife's presence. Nothing suspicious. Meanwhile, Michael managed to get Andrew's contact through mutual friends from college. Andrew, Michael said over the phone, it's Michael Thompson. Do you remember me? Michael, Andrew replied excitedly. Of course I remember. How are you? Good, said Michael. Listen, can I ask you a strange question? Sure. Are you alive? Michael asked. Andrew laughed heartily. Last time I checked, yes, he said. Why the question? Michael explained the whole situation with Brandon. That lunatic is saying I was murdered, Andrew said in disbelief. Man, I'm alive and well here in Toronto. Married, 2 kids, my own business. Can you talk to my wife? Michael asked. She needs to hear this from you. Of course, said Andrew. Helen spoke with Andrew for over an hour. He shared details about his current life, explained why he moved to Canada, and even emailed recent photos. So Brandon lied about everything, Helen said when she hung up. He lied, Michael confirmed. As usual. I'm sorry I doubted you, said Helen. No need to apologize, Michael replied. You were protecting our family. You did the right thing. But I should have trusted you more. Helen, you did trust me, Michael said. You trusted me enough to tell me what Brandon said and give me a chance to explain. If you hadn't, you would have just taken the kids and left. Helen realized he was right. Her reaction had been cautious, not completely distrustful. What do we do now? She asked. We report Brandon for violating the restraining order, Michael said, and this time he won't get out of jail. Brandon was arrested the next morning. This time the charges were more serious, violating a court order, attempted extortion, slander. 15 years in prison, Dr. Richard said when the trial ended. No chance of parole. Finally, Michael sighed. Now we can live in peace. Do you think he'll try anything from prison? Helen asked. No, said Dr. Richard. This time he's going to a maximum security facility. No contact with the outside world. With Brandon definitively out of their lives, Michael and Helen could focus entirely on their family. Ethan was 2.5 and developing quickly. He was a smart, curious, and extremely affectionate child. Sophia, now 1, already showed signs of being as sharp as her brother. She was starting to talk and walk and had a strong, determined personality. She's going to be a handful when she grows up, Michael remarked, watching Sophia try to climb the couch by herself. Like her mother, Helen said proudly. Exactly like her mother, Michael agreed. When Ethan turned 3, they decided to throw a bigger party. It was the first time they felt completely safe, celebrating without any worries. The party was a success. Ethan played with his little friends, got lots of presents, and blew out the candles with Sophia's help. Daddy, Ethan said when the party was over and they were cleaning up. Why are you smiling so much? Because I'm happy, Michael said. Because of the party. Because of everything, Michael replied. Because of you, Sophia, Mommy. Because of our family. I'm happy too, Ethan said. Our family is the best in the world. It really is, Michael agreed, hugging his son. That night, when the children were asleep, Michael and Helen sat on the porch to talk. Helen, Michael said, can I tell you something? Of course. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and can't believe all of this is real, he said. You, the kids, this house, this life, It feels too good to be true. It is true, Helen replied. And do you know why? Because we deserve it. Deserve it? We both went through so much pain before we found each other, Helen explained. We paid the price of suffering. Now we have the right to enjoy the fruits of happiness. Do you think we'll stay this happy? We'll have problems, Helen said realistically. Every family does. The kids will grow up and bring new challenges. We'll grow older and face new difficulties. And then we'll face it all together, Helen said. As a team. As a real family. Forever? Forever, Helen confirmed. 5 peaceful years passed. Ethan had become a responsible and caring 8-year-old boy. He helped look after Sophia, who at 6 was a determined and energetic little girl. Michael's business continued to thrive. He had expanded the company, hired more employees, but always kept his promise not to lose himself in work. Helen had also grown her business and become one of the most respected consultants in the area. But she always made time for family. Dad, Ethan said one Sunday morning, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, son." "Why do you and Mom love each other so much?" The question caught Michael off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because some of my friends say their parents fight a lot," Ethan explained, "but you and Mom never fight." "We do fight," Michael said. "We just don't do it in front of you." "Why?" "Because grown-up fights are grown-up problems," Michael explained. "Kids shouldn't have to worry about that." "But why do you love each other so much?" Michael thought carefully before answering. "Because your mum is my best friend," he said, "and because we built this family together with a lot of love and dedication." "And you'll stay together forever?" "Forever," Michael promised. "Even when you get really old." "Especially when we get really old," Michael said. "We'll take care of each other. And me and Sophia." "We'll always take care of you," Michael said. "No matter how old you get, you'll always be our kids." Ethan smiled, satisfied with the answer. "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" "Sure." "I want a family just like ours when I grow up," Ethan said. "And you will," Michael replied, "if you find a wife as special as your mum." That afternoon, the family went to the park where they usually spent Sundays. Ethan and Sophia played on the playground while Michael and Helen watched from a bench. "What are you thinking about?" Helen asked, noticing Michael was quieter than usual. "Life," he said. "How much has changed these past few years?" "For the better?" "Infinitely for the better," Michael said. 10 years ago, I was a bitter, betrayed man with no hope. Today, I'm the happiest man in the world. What made the difference?" "You," Michael said simply, "and our family." "It wasn't just me," Helen said. "It was you too. Your courage to start over, your willingness to trust again, your love for the kids." "Our courage," Michael corrected. "Our willingness, our love." They watched the children play for a few more hours. Ethan showed Sophia how to use the slide, carefully looking out for her. It was a scene that captured everything they had built together. When they got home that evening, there was a letter in the mailbox. It was from Jessica. "What does she want now?" Helen asked, seeing the sender's name. "Let's see," said Michael, opening the letter. "Michael and Helen, I hope this letter finds you well and happy. I heard through mutual friends that you got married and had children. I'm genuinely happy for your happiness. I'm writing to let you know I've moved permanently to Portland, where I've accepted a job at an accounting firm. It's a fresh start, far from all the bad memories. I also want you to know I've found peace. I've been in therapy for 3 years, learned to live alone, and built a simple but honest life. I'm not asking for forgiveness again, because I know I've already said all there is to say. I'm just closing this chapter for good. I wish you all the happiness in the world. Take good care of that beautiful family you've built. With affection and respect, Jessica." Michael finished reading the letter aloud and stayed silent for a moment. "What do you think?" asked Helen. "Sincere," said Michael. For the first time in years, she sounded completely sincere. "Do you feel anything?" "Relief," said Michael. "Relief knowing she found her way. Anything else?" "Gratitude," Michael said, surprising Helen. "Gratitude. If she hadn't betrayed me, I never would have met you," he explained. "I never would have discovered what true love is." That's a poetic way to see things, Helen said, smiling. It's the only way that makes sense, Michael replied. Everything in life happens for a reason. So you don't hold any grudge against her? None, said Michael. I only feel gratitude for the life I have today. Helen kissed Michael tenderly. That's why I love you, she said, for your ability to turn pain into wisdom. And I love you for your ability to make me a better person, Michael replied. 2 years later, when Ethan was 10 and Sophia was 8, the family received special news. Helen was pregnant again. Really? Michael asked in disbelief when she told him. Really? Helen confirmed. At 43, I'm going to be a mother for the 3rd time. And how do you feel? Excited, said Helen, and a little worried. I'm not young anymore. But you're healthy, Michael said, and we have experience now. That's true, Helen agreed, and Ethan and Sophia will love having another little brother. When they told the children, the reaction was just as they expected. Another brother? Ethan asked excitedly. Or sister, Helen corrected. Either way, said Sophia. I'll teach them everything. We'll teach them together, Ethan said. You and I are a team. And Mommy and Daddy too, Sophia added. And the baby will be part of the team, Ethan said. The 3rd pregnancy was smoother than Helen expected. At 43, she had more energy than many younger expectant mothers. It's because I'm happy, she explained to the doctor. Happiness is good for the body. And having a close-knit family helps too, the doctor added. Family support is essential. In the 7th month, they found out it would be another boy. 3 men to protect me, Helen joked. Sophia will have to form a girls' alliance. We can, Sophia said. Vater, I protect you, you protect me. Deal, Helen replied. The 3rd child was born on a fall morning after just 3 hours of labor. Ethan and Sophia waited anxiously in the hospital hallway with Mrs. Dorothy. What should we name him? Michael asked when the baby was placed in his arms. Benjamin, said Helen, because Benjamin means strong as a bear, and he'll need to be strong to keep up with his siblings. Benjamin Thompson, Michael said. A warrior's name. When they brought Benjamin home, Ethan and Sophia became the most devoted siblings in the world. They helped with everything, changing diapers, giving baths, rocking him to sleep. Our family is complete, said Helen one evening, watching their 3 children sleep. It really is, agreed Michael. I couldn't be happier than I am right now. Neither could I, said Helen. And so, 10 years after discovering the betrayal that had nearly destroyed his life, Michael had built a family that surpassed all his dreams. Ethan, Sophia, and Benjamin grew up surrounded by love, affection, and security. The business remained prosperous. His relationship with Helen grew stronger every day, and even Mrs. Dorothy, now 80 years old, was healthy and active, thoroughly enjoying her role as a grandmother. One December night, on the eve of their 10th wedding anniversary, Michael and Helen were on the porch talking after putting the children to bed. Helen, Michael said, thank you. For what? For coming into my life, he replied. For giving me a second chance at love. For giving me 3 wonderful children. For turning my house into a family. Thank you, said Helen, for showing me it's possible to trust again, for being the father our children deserve, for loving me despite all my flaws. What flaws? Michael teased. I'm stubborn, controlling, and sometimes too demanding, Helen admitted. And I'm a recovering workaholic. Overly jealous and sometimes too protective, Michael said. We're perfect for each other, Helen said with a laugh. We really are, Michael agreed. They fell silent for a few minutes, simply enjoying the peace of the night and the sense of fulfillment their lives had achieved. Michael, Helen finally said, do you still remember that day at the cafe when we first met? I do, he replied. You were nervous, I was cautious. 2 survivors getting to know each other. And now? Now we're 2 people who've learned that true love is worth every hardship, Michael said. And it really is, Helen agreed. Every tear shed, every sleepless night, every moment of pain. It was all worth it to get here. To this porch, this home with our 3 children asleep, Michael said. To this moment when we finally know what it means to be truly happy, Helen added. The next morning on their anniversary, The children woke up early to prepare a surprise for their parents. "Dad, Mom," Ethan called, "come to the living room." Michael and Helen went downstairs to find the room decorated with balloons and a handmade banner that read, "Happy 10th anniversary, Mom and Dad." "We made a special breakfast," Sophia announced proudly. "And I helped," said Benjamin, who at 2 years old always wanted to be part of everything. "Thank you, my darlings," Helen said, touched. "You're the most special kids in the world," Michael added. During breakfast, Ethan asked a question that stayed with everyone. "Dad, Mom," he said, "are you going to have more kids?" Michael and Helen exchanged glances. "Why?" Helen asked. "Do you want more siblings?" "I do," Ethan said. "But if not, that's okay too. Our family is already perfect the way it is." "It really is," Sophia agreed. "And if Dad and Mom have more kids, we'll take care of all of them," Benjamin added, with the seriousness of a 2-year-old. "You kids are amazing," Michael said, hugging all three at once. That evening, to celebrate their anniversary, Michael and Helen went to dinner at the same restaurant where they'd had their first romantic date. 10 years, Helen said, raising a glass of wine. 10 years, Michael repeated, and here's to 50 more. 50, Helen laughed. "You want to stay with me till we're 90? "I want to stay with you forever," Michael said, "in this life and the next." "Hopeless romantic," Helen teased. "Only for you," Michael replied. They dined while talking about their children, their plans for the future, and the dreams they still wanted to fulfill together. "Helen," Michael said as they were heading home, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. Sometimes I dream about our children grown up, married, bringing our grandchildren to visit the house," Michael shared. "What's that dream like?" "We're old, sitting on the porch, watching our grandchildren play in the yard," Michael said. "Ethan tells them jokes, Sophia teaches them piano, and Benjamin plays ball with them. And what about us?" "We're holding hands, proud of everything we've built," Michael replied. "Proud of the family we've raised, the values we've passed on, the love we've spread." "It's a beautiful dream," Helen said, "and it's going to come true." "How can you be so sure?" "Because we've already laid the foundation," Helen answered. "True love, mutual respect, dedication to family. The rest is just a natural consequence." When they got home, the children were already asleep. Mrs. Dorothy had been watching them during dinner. "How were they?" Michael asked his mother. "Angels," Mrs. Dorothy said. "They ate, played a little, and went to bed without a fuss." "Thank you, Mom." "Any time, son," Mrs. Dorothy replied. "It's a joy to take care of my grandchildren." After Mrs. Dorothy left, Michael and Helen checked on the children before going to bed. Ethan was asleep, hugging a book. Sophia had dozed, off with a doll in her arms. Benjamin lay on his back, his little arms stretched out. "Our treasures," Helen whispered. "Our miracles," Michael whispered back. In their room, before falling asleep, Helen shared one last thought. "Michael, do you remember what your life was like 15 years ago?" "I do," Michael said. "It was empty, even though I didn't realize it at the time." "Mine too," Helen admitted. "I thought I had everything, but in truth I had nothing." "And now? Now we have everything that truly matters," Helen said. "We have each other, we have our children, we have our family. We have our story," Michael added. "A story of overcoming, of love, of new beginnings. A story that's still being written," Helen said. "And it's going to have a happy ending," Michael declared. "It's going to have many happy endings," Helen corrected. "Every day is a happy ending when you have a family like ours." Michael kissed Helen tenderly. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," she replied. And so, after a journey that began with betrayal, pain, and heartbreak, Michael had found not only true love but a complete family, and a happiness that surpassed all his dreams. His business remained prosperous. His children grew up healthy and happy. His bond with Helen grew stronger every day, and he had learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what truly matters. 15 years after hearing the first lies from that hidden phone, Michael finally understood what it meant to live a full life, surrounded by people who loved him unconditionally and whom he loved just as deeply. Every morning he woke up beside Helen, listening to the sound of the children playing in the next room. He gave thanks for the betrayal that had destroyed his first life and allowed him to build a second one, infinitely better. Because sometimes, Michael thought, the worst things that happen to us are just the first chapter of the best story we'll ever live. The end. Now tell us what you thought of Michael, Helen, and their family's story. Do you think Michael made the right choices throughout this journey? And was Helen wise to give love a second chance? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this tale of resilience and new beginnings. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Don't forget to like this story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.